That's right, folks. I am legitimately doing everything at once, right? Right, and that's what I'm doing, folks. I just typed in, I am going live with Doran Corkum on Twitch right now because that is exactly what I'm doing. I'm going live with Doran Corkum on Twitch right now. It's like magic, right, Doran?
Yeah, you're twitching away. Am I supposed to
Twitching.
twitch too?
Yeah, so there we go. I just posted an advertisement there. We'll draw out the millions.
And millions.
That's right. No, it's crazy. I'm selling my comic book collection right now, actually. Some of it.
That's a big choice. I've been thinking the same thing too, honestly. Had them for a lot of years, but it's like, is it time to start kind of breaking a little bit of money from it? You know what I mean?
So it's weird because this is what I've noticed. Like, and I think this is where the hobby is right now. And I think this is where it's going to go. A lot of the guys that are in the business, been in the business for a long time, only want the old books. Now I have a Green Lantern run from the Silver Age, right? So I'm going to be getting rid of that. Probably get something for it. How much? I don't know. I have a good relationship with the comic shop I'm going to for that one. I don't expect he's going to give me top dollar for it. That's not what I'm expecting, but I'm not expecting. He's not going to like deliberately low bridge me either, right? So now, but anything I have I started collecting during the modern age, right? The quote unquote modern age, and because I collected during the modern age, so the modern age is the longest age of books. It's 1992 till now. Right, the golden age is pre-1950. Silver age is 60 to 70. The bronze age is 80s to 90s. Now, if you notice the pattern here, the modern age has been going on for a very, very long time.
the value of the metal is going down.
yeah. So I mean, it's not really it's like the 90s, like the 90s especially, like is a weird. It's weird because the first half, there's a lot of those comics still existing. The second half, not so much, right? It's
and you can blame Image, like the artist from Image, a lot for that.
Oh, absolutely. No,
you know what I mean? The whole fracturing of things,
and how do we put this? The mistakes from the past come to haunt us in the future.
Yeah, and I mean, there's some.
But to make a long story short, so now I'm selling these books. So I'm doing them on eBay right now. Some of and this is what I'm expecting. I'm expecting some of it to go. I don't know how much of it's going to go, but some of it's going to go. Some of it's going to stick around. But what do I do with the stuff that I don't want? Like one comic book shop I just generously ask, because I have Jason Aaron's store run, particularly the Lady Thor stuff. How much would you give me per issue of that? Right? Now, let's just say
but that's sometimes why it's better to do the bulk deal. I think, like, you mix in some of the ones that you with the high dollar, and then some of your low dollar ones, and you try.
Absolutely, and that's what I'm doing. Like, if I'm doing them in lots. Like my Red Lanterns run is 1 through like the whole run. My Supergirl run is the whole run. Like, so there's valuable ones. There's not so valuable ones. Either way, I'm just getting rid of the stuff I don't want. Right. So that's what I'm doing. Right. I mean, either way, I'm like. I'm at that point in my life where it's if I'm keeping it, I want to enjoy it, right? That's where I'm at. I don't. I feel it's an unnecessary burden. But I go to him. How much? He goes 25 cents an issue. It's like, fuck you.
What?
Yeah, no. I mean, so I mean that's where he's at, and And the thing is, I'm looking at him. And I'm like, nah, man. Like at that point, I'm just going to keep him in my storage locker. I'm not even going to care, right?
Yeah.
So. That's where I'm at. Like I'm at that point now where, and on top of that, so again, I don't know what the result's going to be. Like I'm going to be doing it for the next month or so. I wish I had more time. I don't. It's just the way it is. I don't have the luxury of an extended selling point window here. Now, folks, don't kid yourself. You do decide to get my books on eBay. I'm not going to just give them to you for nothing. I'm not going to give them to you for full value necessarily, but I'm not going to give them to you for nothing.
You could get a deal.
you will get a deal. No, you absolutely. I'm all for a deal, but I'm not. But there's a deal, and then there's if you try to steal,
then it's crazy and
like my red like for sure, like as of this conversation, my Red Lanterns run is gonna go for a decent amount, even with all the fees and stuff like that. I'll see something for it, and that's what I want. Like I don't need to see the top dollar for it, but I do want to see something for it. And that's the difference, right? I don't necessarily want I don't need the big money. I'm not looking for big money. I'm looking for just a bit of something back for it.
And are we talking slabs here, or just like what I do? I don't have any slabs. I just have I just collected them, right? Yeah, they're
Yeah,
fancy
that's
board
what I
things,
did
and
too.
then
I just collect
yep,
them. Like there's
yeah,
7, like if from a grading standpoint, they're anywhere from 6.5 to 8, right? Like no,
okay, yep,
they're not. I read them once, like
right,
shrug,
yeah.
right? So
What a surprise! I
yeah,
bought a comic and I read it.
that's it, right? So I
Yep.
mean that's it. So I'm been grading them on an average of 7.0 because I feel that's about right, right? They're not below that. They're not above that because again, I read them. I know I read them,
Yeah.
right? So
I had a buddy you couldn't borrow anything from him. Like my friend Trevor, if he had a book, you couldn't open it all the way. He didn't want you to crack the spines. He was that type of collector, like on anything. Because I was like, I was not that. I mean, I put things away after I read it, and I was careful with it. But I wasn't like, hey, don't crack the spine on something, right?
oh,
You call it. Yeah.
I had one person who's like, I love my comics, but she tried to fall asleep on them. I was like, no, 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 no. There are limits, right? Like,
Right.
you're not doing
Right.
that.
Are you enjoying your comic, or are you kind of yeah?
Yeah, exactly. No, and that's it, right? So at this point, so I bought my last long box. I'm going to be buying bags and boards for a few things. So I'm going to be looking through, and I have one more box of I call it the stuff I enjoy,
Okay.
right? Just the
Cool.
stuff I enjoy, and I'll have like a grand total of 4 of those long boxes. That's still about 1,200 comics. That's still a decent reading list,
Oh
right?
yeah. Yeah.
I'm happy with that, right? The rest can go. Now, again, I'm not looking for like top dollar, but I'm not looking for you're not going to fuck me.
It's got to be reasonable. Yeah.
Yeah.
And some of them you probably will get, like on eBay, you could get, kind of a little, if someone really needs it, you'll get a little bit of a back and forth,
Oh,
hopefully.
absolutely. No, that's it. I'll be doing now. I'll be doing it. Like again, but again, I'm of the mindset like as of right now, like this is episode 973.
Okay.
Like I'm near 1,000, dude. So I'm getting ready to go on
Nice.
the road. Like that's my next plan.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is what's happening. I've been doing like this week is all about the comics, getting that rolling, which is that's what this week's been about. But next week is about I'm looking to make as much money as I can for the next 2 to 3 months. Right. I would like to
Yep.
be out of here sooner than later, but I'm pragmatic enough to go, okay, I like, and I'll do whatever I have to do. It's not a question. It's just a reality of like, okay, I'm trying to get money here. I'm trying to look for some freelance work, like I'm advertising stuff, what I've been doing there. I'm just trying to do as many different things as I can to just store as much money as I can.
Yep.
Because it's time for me to go. And I'm well aware of that.
Oh, so what does go mean? We need the definition of that then.
I'm going to go on the road. Like I'm literally
Yeah.
I'm going to be doing kind of like a van life concept
Yeah.
with the
Yep.
show.
I watch videos on this. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, no.
Fantastic.
So I'm looking at that like
Nice.
I've already seen the van I want. I've already seen the value I'm going for with that, and it's probably going to be like I know what I found a really good place for that kind of stuff. So I got that taken care of. I'm reacquainting myself with driving a little bit. It's been a long time since I've done anything behind the wheel.
Okay.
So I'm going to be doing that this weekend a little bit, getting myself acquainted, getting myself trained and going and stuff like that. Right. And that's kind of that's the next thing. And then after that, I am working on just other, like basically getting all my I's dotted and T's crossed.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
I'm going to try to get myself as much different work as I can that I can do on the road while I'm on the road.
Yep.
And I've started a Patreon page, so you can actually watch what the next series is going to look like already if you really want to.
Cool.
Right. So that I'm doing all these things now. I'm just creating that bridge for myself because I realize that this is what I want to do. I'm too old I'm just too old, man, just to settle for shit. Like that's where I'm at. Like that's legitimately where I'm at. I'm going to do what I want to do, and I don't give a fuck. I just don't.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's some, we all hit certain spots in our life, right, where it's time for change, as you kind of say. It's time to go, right? Time for something different, different flavor, right?
Yeah, that's it, right? And I hit that point. I hit that point, right? So it's not that like I'm again. I don't knock anybody for anything, but I looked at the whole concept of this, right? The whole concept of like I think Canadians have gone batshit, and I'll tell you. And here's why. What are we paying for at this point?
Uh, right.
It makes
A
no
lot of
sense.
taxes, that's for sure.
Well, I mean, it makes no sense because, okay, right this minute, I'm in a place that honestly is probably a touch too much for me. For what I'm getting, definitely touch too much. But that's the economy right now,
Right.
right? And I'm looking at this and going, this is fucked. Like this is just fucked. But it's not just me, it's everywhere. It's literally everywhere in the whole country. And I'm thinking to myself, how did we fuck up so bad?
Well, I think the pandemic opened a lot of people's eyes. I was talking to a couple people, who were, I forget where we ran into them, but they were saying how they lived in Toronto all their life, for instance, downtown
Yeah.
Toronto. At the
Oh
pandemic
yeah.
hit, pandemic hit, "Oh, see you later." And where I'm from, Nova Scotia, is was booming the real estate over the pandemic because everybody was moving to Nova Scotia because the houses were so cheap, so they're saving a lot of money. But of course, that pushed the cost of everything up for the houses, right? Because now all of a
Well,
sudden everybody wanted to be there. Good for good for Nova Scotia, but not good. You know what I mean? Overall, for someone who's, because people need places to live, and this is where my friends were starting to have problems. They're like, I can't find an apartment to live. I can't find a new place. If I need to go to a new place, it's hard because everybody else is they're selling they're selling their houses that were apartments before because they're getting such a good price for it, right? So
yeah,
people are
for
working
now.
remotely. People, yeah, exactly. A lot of that stuff goes up, and then it will come down a bit. Who knows how far? Maybe just a little bit, maybe a lot.
Well, there's going to be well. Here's the thing. I mean, there's a breaking point too. If no one can afford to live in these places, then what?
Well, that's what happened in the states when they were handing out all those mortgages and everybody was foreclosing on their mortgages, like they were just giving up on their houses. Yeah,
Yeah,
house broke is a real term, and they say that, I forget where, but I heard a statistic. This was years ago too. Like this was pre-pandemic and everything like that. That over 50% of all people live paycheck to paycheck, and I've
oh
been
yeah,
there.
no, it's absolutely
You know what I
true.
mean? You know
It's
what I mean? I've
absolutely
been
true.
there, and I've survived through that stuff and got fortunate and found certain paths, but it's not fun. I remember having cardboard boxes for my end tables and a TV stand in an apartment when I started out. Right, that's what we used. We taped up the cardboard
Oh,
boxes, and you know what I mean.
sure.
Like, we
I
didn't
mean,
have
that's
a regular bed. We had like a kind of like a hideaway bed thing we had to
oh
use, and you know what I mean. Like we didn't even have so I've been to the kind of like the lower level and found my way forward. But yeah, it's life is can be like that. But the minimalist approach, a lot of people are going to now, like tiny homes, and what you're saying, they're going on the road to travel and see things and do, as do what work they can remotely at their
yeah.
pace, at their go travel and see.
Well, that's just it. Like, okay, so for the last few months, I've been able to make really decent money as a freelancer. Like decent, not through the roof yet,
No,
but I'm even this month I'm seeing even without really getting any extra gigs this month, I'm seeing four figures, which for a lot of people like that's a lot of money as a freelancer, but it can be done.
yeah,
And that's the thing. Like, and I'm not even focusing. I haven't focused on it like I normally would this month because I've been trying to get my comics going, right? So next month, like next week, that's like it's all about like this week was about getting the comics started. Next week is about getting back on the grind to do this. But basically, what it's come down to, I think, for most of us is this way of life is no longer
well,
feasible for a lot of people. Like realistically, if you're living paycheck to paycheck or you're struggling just to make ends meet,
yeah,
when do you break?
right, right. And I feel bad for the younger generations underneath us who don't who are going to experience it a lot more, right? They say the average person won't be able to afford a home. Like I never thought I'd afford a home. I remember when I got my first job for $10 an hour, and I was like, I think it was 9.50
Yeah.
back in the day. It was actually in Ottawa here, the first chapters, and I was like, I made it. I made it when I made $10, but that's nothing now, right? And it was nothing really back then in a sense.
Oh, it still was not. Oh
You
no,
know,
even back.
you're not going to buy a house, you're not going to have a car, you're not going to have, but I'm getting by. I got an apartment at least I can put all my money into, right? Someone else can make money off me.
Well, that's my point.
I think.
So I mean, this is something that has to be realistic. Like this is no longer feasible. Like there's going to come a point where it's just going to be like, well, we can't do this anymore. I mean, because that's what we've come to.
Or you don't need to do it that way. I think that's a big difference
Yes.
now too, is because just like I'm working with artists all over the world making the comics, the world's now opened up with the cloud and everything like that. You can now collaborate with so many people on the fly. You couldn't do that 20 years ago. I couldn't find the resources. There was no internet, and that was of any significance in, let's say, the 98,
Oh
97
yeah.
range. You know what I mean? Like, so it was like you couldn't even, like, think of the fact that to get information we'd have to go to a library. Think about that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and then the book wouldn't be there, or some information wouldn't be there in the first place. You wouldn't know about certain things, and now everybody just can learn, and all the training videos and YouTube's so phenomenal.
Well, yeah. I mean, it makes you question why you go to college anymore. I mean, seriously, because you have the skill set. You have the skill set.
Yeah. And you
right?
can develop the skills you couldn't before.
Yeah, you can learn stuff faster now. Like there's almost like this is the thing. Like this whole idea we had prior to the digital age of how things were done is no longer real. I think this is what's happening. This is one of the reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing is because I just realized that this stuff isn't going to exist as we know it. It's going to disappear in a variety of different ways. I think the biggest thing, if you have a house today, have you paid for it? Because if the answer is yes, you're going to be fine. But if not, if the answer is yes, you're going to be fine.
And I know, and I know a lot of people who are blessed. Like, I talked to one guy at work. You know what I mean? He's very well off, so he got pretty fortunate that he got married. His wife's father is very well off. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? And his kind of some of his biggest problems is, well, my parents are deciding to sell the cottage. Do I want to buy it? I wish. When I hear those conversations, I'm like, yeah, I wish. I wish I would have that option, because I grew up on the harder side. Like, I left home when I was 15. And then I ended up in a foster home, and till I was 21, which is, was just the way I grew up. And then I just put a backpack on my shoulder at 20. Again, I couldn't find a job anywhere. I couldn't get to work at a gas station where my best friend dad's owned, because he was going to help his sons. Makes sense, right? When you think about it. Or, I mean, he's going to give his sons work, not me. But even though I could be the hardest, best worker ever, it didn't matter. You couldn't find work in Nova Scotia. So I put the backpack on my shoulder, and I went out west, right? And then made my $5 an hour at a Wendy's and $10 doing pipe, and found my way.
Right? But again, different era too. Like that $5-10 went a lot
different era.
But
it went way farther.
It went way farther, right? So now today, like $5 barely gets you, like that'll get you an energy drink and maybe a chocolate bar. Maybe.
Maybe. Like I think it was $3.50 every 2 weeks I was making at the Wendy's at the time, and it was just like, to think about that now is like, wow. Right. It's it gets you nothing. Like you go get a combo for, at a Wendy's. I think it's at least probably $12. Where back then it was $4.75 for the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everything's just so much more expensive.
And this is my point, right? We've hit this wonderful point where nothing we are doing right this minute is going to be here in another 10 years, because no one's either going to be able to afford it or no one's going to want it anymore. Right. Yeah. That's where we're going.
Yeah, it's definitely can be hard to find the way and figure out which direction to go. And if you don't try the kind of like a different style, and who knows what the world, you look at what's happening in Russia and the Ukraine and all this. I've been watching that very closely. You see how crazy the world can get, and all these alliances of countries working together. It's like, we're Canadians, we're nice people, but the rest of the world is not necessarily full of nice people.
We're not always nice either, right?
But we're considered nice, though.
Yeah. But I mean,
we're the nice people.
But I mean, I just think it's more about position than anything else. Like, if you look at hell, what we did in 2021, 2022, early 2022, that wasn't necessarily nice. Our history, the thing about Canadians is we're polite. So we get away with a lot more shit. We're nice about what we do, right? We're nice about how we do it. But we're not necessarily. So when I look at Ukraine right now, I'm looking, this is Iraq 2.0. That's what this is. That's legitimately, in a lot of ways, that's what this has become. And I think, again, this is one of those situations where, again, I've seen what the previous generation did with this stuff. And I realize that we are no longer in a position where we can do the same thing anymore. We can't ignore it and hope it goes away, right? Things have to fundamentally change, and that's kind of where I think we're at. I think for my case in particular, specifically, I'm looking for where I fit. And that's the honest answer, right? Because if it were, because the way I look at it is, I think the real struggle in life is this: what are you worth? What are you willing to settle for? And what are you willing to fight for? And
Right.
those are the three big questions, right? Going forward, right? I think I'm worth a lot. Again, being a freelancer, I realize how much you can make, right? And I realize that, I have to pivot and evolve and grow as a result of this. But again, doing advertising, I got more business when I raised my rates, Doran. What does it tell you?
Yeah, and sometimes that there's a show called Bar Rescue that
Yes.
talks about premium. I think
Yep.
it's premium the term he uses. Yeah, if you give someone a premium feel, they'll pay more. All right,
Absolutely.
you're considered more professional
No,
as
yeah,
well.
because
So there's a reputation that almost goes with being premium.
that
Yeah,
because again, it's also just realistic. Okay, this is worth more than it used to be. This is a Red Bull, folks. But at the same time, do you give a shit about it? Probably not. Why? It doesn't cost anything. This you give a shit a lot more about. It's a cell phone. Why? What do you pay for it? If you break it, right? It's a very different feel. It's a very different kind of thing. So what you have to look at is like, and this is probably the first most important lesson as a freelancer, is the more skin your client has in the game, the more they'll respect you. Something I learned really early on, and
well, they can't cut away from you so easily either, as well. Yeah, yeah,
well,
because
yeah, because they're
they're
invested.
brand
They're as
owners
invested in it as
in
you
each
are.
other. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, the screwing can still happen. It does, but the
Oh
thing
yeah,
is,
and you have to expect it almost. Yes,
what you,
a
you
little bit.
learn it's a possibility. It's your client history. Like I said, I have some regular clients. I have some contracts that are going to go into next year already. I already know this. Um, I have work in here, but like I said, now I'm trying to expand to work elsewhere so I can keep expanding on what I'm
Yeah,
doing.
yeah.
Um, because again, there is more money in working for myself than there's working for anywhere else. Now, for the next few months, I may get myself a part-time job or something else on top of
Yep.
what I'm doing, just because I'm trying to accelerate my money saving basically.
Right.
But that's kind of where I'm at. Like I'm at a point now where um, I'm at the saving up to go phase. So I'm not sure exactly when I'm going, but it's going to be sooner than later.
You
So
got a battle plan.
yeah,
Right. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So, and even if it completely blows up in my face, I mean, again, I'm not in a bad spot, not in a great spot. I'm not in a bad spot.
Yeah.
Right.
And maybe it goes well. Maybe you're going to find a happiness that you're looking for, a
Yeah.
peacefulness almost of, So if you don't take the chance, you don't get the reward. There's an old saying I've always loved. I've used for years, even in gaming. I think it's called "Victory to the Bold,"
Fortune
and
favors the
people
bold.
can argue that either way they want. But "Victory to the Bold" means you got to be bold enough to do it. Right? You don't know if you don't try. And even Wayne Gretzky said, like, you miss 100%. But something I don't know what the saying is exactly, but it's something like if you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, like they don't
Oh,
count.
he's
Right?
up. No,
It's something like that. Like you got if you don't take your shot, and if you think
well,
it's going to make you happy,
but even okay. So even let's say I fail. Let's just say I completely blows up in my face. Absolutely 100%. You know what I've learned? It all leads somewhere. It just may not be what you. Life very rarely goes the way you envision it will go.
there's
Right?
many chapters to it as well, and that's what a
Yeah.
lot of people need to realize. All the younger people, they think, oh, that's all about this chapter. They think their book is done, but it's really one. As they always say, when one closes, another opportunity pops up. But it's true. There's lots of chapters to things, and who knows who you'll meet that might help with things. Who knows?
Yeah.
when you focus on it, where it will lead you.
Well, that's it. Like the last 2 years, I've had to learn how to make money on my own without that's the thing. Last month was awesome because it was almost like I made money at will for the first time ever. It's like I could just find and it just sounds crazy, right? But
No, something probably happened. Yeah. Yes.
yeah. But
Industry or whatever.
there's a point now. Like this month was kind of like this month's a turning point because this month's is no longer about where I'm at specifically, but where I'm going. And I have to do now all the steps I know how to do to get to where I'm going. Now, it may not work out. That's the thing. Life, and again, folks, I'm not trying to sabotage myself. What I've learned in this life is I detach from the outcome. I'm not expecting a failure, but I'm not. You learn not to get too high up or too high down. You try to keep it at a certain level of even keel, right? You can let yourself have a moment here and there where you feel sorry for yourself, right? That happens. You can have a
Oh, yeah.
moment. That's all you got. You got a moment. That's it. Then you got to
That's
get up and you got to get up and keep throwing punches. Life's tough,
right.
and you got to be tougher.
Yeah, it's yeah. Again, when I was making nothing back then, yeah, a lot of things happened. Like for instance, at one point, my girlfriend left me in the middle of it all, right? And I was like, I'm in the middle of nowhere's Alberta, out west, making $5 an hour, and my girlfriend was paying half the money for the apartment, right? So now I lost that half. We're broken up on top of it all. It's like, oh, but I found my way. Actually, a friend said, hey, you can come stay in my basement. You can rent a board there. That started the roll. And then when I got my next job, I got lucky enough that I actually worked with my spouse's mother, and then that was 30 years, oh well, 26 years ago. So we've been together for over 26 years now, which is crazy to say, but it's interesting how one thing can lead to another thing that ends up
Oh,
helping
absolutely.
forward, right? You think you're down and out, but you meet the right person or know the right person, have a good friend. I had this, what I always was blessed with was good friends. And
Yeah,
to this day, I'm still friends with my friends from high school. And some of my friends out west still. So
guys,
you know what I mean? So that
that's a true
if you
blessing.
got that, you got, again, you value that when been down my road, because I left home, right? Went into a foster. I didn't really have a normal family, so my friends are more my family in a sense. So I
Yeah.
still have family in that, but it's different. You value that more when they're there and they have your backs.
Well, yeah. That's the thing, right? Everything can happen like that, but I gotta give you kudos, man. Like friends from high school, that is exceedingly rare.
Yeah, we're still the
Right?
same pack. We
Wow,
played Dungeons and
that's
Dragons
impressive.
together. We just went down to HellCon last year. Me and Doug and Jarrett. Jarrett's actually the reason I ended up in Ottawa when we were so everything fell apart out west again. But I'm with my spouse at that time and her family, and her family basically says, "Hey, you can't come with us, right?" And we're driving across the country. I got like $800 in my pocket, and my truck's brakes on the way across too. So we get here barely in my truck with all my stuff in the back. And my friend in Ottawa said, "Hey, you can stay here for a couple months." The funny thing about it, he didn't tell me till a couple of years ago. He never told his parents. His parents were away on vacation, and they came back. I didn't know. So his parents came back on vacation, and I always got along with his parents. And they're like, so they were wondering why I was there. We didn't know that. It was kind of a funny story. He was just a nice guy, and he was trying to help me out, right? I mean, so
Yeah,
he just,
yeah. And he's willing to take that's a huge build. He was willing. He must be really good
yeah,
friends, man.
because he was living in his parents' basement at the time as well, right? So he kind of had the basement part. So all of a sudden, there's two more people in there, and we lasted a couple of weeks before they kind of said, "Hey, well, we're sitting there eating their food. We got no money." You know what I mean? It's like, it's not that we're not good workers or anything. We're just in a bad spot, and we needed some help, and they knew
Oh,
that.
but
Yeah.
that's the way it goes, right? Like everything about life is about transit. Like life is always transition, always. Like it never stops. And what again in this day and age, what you got to realize is I think the quote unquote the game as it was like we're both from the era of we're still kind of a little bit from that golden era of you do everything right and it all magically works out.
Right.
Right, we're from that era.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Very much from where I'm from too. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but that era doesn't really exist anymore. In fact, like there are people. I had this epiphany today because I was playing chess with somebody that currently lives in the same place I do. She has never seen that. She has never seen a a semi-functioning society ever, right?
Yes, that's where probably I was luckier, even though again I came from a kind of broken home. It is a broken home. I shouldn't say it's not. I didn't have a dad. My mother suffers from mental illness, so
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So, but the community around me was really really cool. Now
yeah,
there was other problems. There was bullying in school and all that, but the community was like actually a lot of elderly people. Like where I grew up, for instance, I saw an old lady going down the street, walking down the street with her groceries. I would actually go help her with her groceries to the I
yeah,
don't know if I told you this story last time or not, but so the story kind of translates to how the world changes from where you live.
yeah,
So I would help that person with their groceries to their house. No ill intent. I'm just being a nice young man, right?
yeah,
That's the type of person I was brought to be up by my grandparents, and you know my the problems of my life. I was still taught to be polite and be helpful, right? And then years later, I left that home. I went out west, and I'm walking down the street, and I just say hello to somebody when they're walking down the sidewalk in Edmonton, just outside of Edmonton, and they actually take steps away from me like I'm a bad person. And I was confused. I remember being confused at that point because I'm not a bad person, right? I'm the person who would probably look out for you if you were in trouble. I probably, even though I don't know you, I'd probably try and stand up and help you. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's interesting, like the word with like here coming out here at Calgary this time around. It's interesting. I try to connect with a whole bunch of people, and that didn't happen the way I imagined it would happen.
Right.
And so I've learned, like for me, it was like, okay, didn't work out. A little sad, but at least I tried. I did everything I
Yep.
knew how to do.
Yep.
So now for me, it's like, okay, transition. What's next?
Yep.
And you're like, and some people would be like terrified of this. I don't know. But there's the flip side of that is, well,
That's exciting. Is it
yeah,
excite if you can feel the excitement to something like that, and as long you have like you got a plan. Most people, this is what I found in life too. Like a lot of my friends who are back home, some of them are very very happy back home, and they will never leave. They'll never leave that bubble,
yeah,
right? They'll
there's
never have
nothing
that
wrong with
experience of the bubble. And here I took off when I was younger. I've been all over the place in Canada, back and forth. I've traveled now, you know, to Costa Rica and different places. I've been very fortunate in that sense that I was willing to go outside the bubble. And it sounds like you're willing to go to outside the bubble as well on whatever journey you're going on. And Canada is such a beautiful place to do something like this. There's
that. Oh
so
yeah.
much to see. You know what I mean? Uh,
Well,
it's it
it's
sounds
not
like a
just
fun.
it's not just Canada though for me. It's the
You're
states
going,
too.
yeah,
I'm dual
yep,
citizenship. I'm
yep.
dual citizen, so I can go in both states.
Oh, oh, nice. Oh,
So I can go.
that's a see. Use your what your advantages are,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So I can go
Yep.
literally to both borders. I can meet people, and that's just it. Like this podcast has opened so many doors for me, and like I'm sad I'm ending this version of it. I mean, it is continuing, folks. Like I said, check out my Patreon. Right now if you want to see it. There's our plug for the moment, but.
You said that thing like on a timer down, like on a thing scrolling across the bottom. Just ooh.
Well, we can how about we do it like this? Because um here we go. How I got this trained. They gave me awards for this, Doran. They gave me
Oh, awards.
they did.
Shiny awards? Were they really shiny? Shiny's important.
Yeah, they were. It was.
Nice.
It's a glass award. It's a glass award. It
Okay.
was. It said 2018 Aurora Award. So I actually got it. Yeah. So
Aurora.
yeah. So I want. I like for me, it's like, yeah, I'm an award-winning podcaster. Holy shit! And
Nice.
no, this year I've been fortunate. I've had some weeks, not just months, weeks where I've had thousands of listeners. Now it's kind of in its quiet phase right now, which is it's summer. Nobody's inside
Right.
right now if they can avoid it. And yeah, so what I've learned and like I said, I've met so many people and I'm going to get to meet. So like, for example, so there's a horror author in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. There is an ice cream place under train tracks. I'm going to have lunch with her at that place under train tracks. I can't wait. I have another author in the same area who's got my last Kickstarter I supported. He's got my book. I'm going to meet him in person and get it. That's going to be really cool. I have people in California. I've one person in particular I have met that works for an animation studio. I get to meet them. She's a fan of me. It was just awesome. Like that's a really cool thing to say. Is like she's a legit fan. Then there's some people there that I've met, and then go back finally. So I'm also a man that believes in the power of thank you. So when I was going through my hardest time in Arizona, the biggest struggle of my life was there. I was too angry at the time to realize how many people were helping me through one of the most difficult times in my life.
Sure.
There are a lot. Now, again, I go outside the bubble. So I'm not the same guy, and I won't be the same personnel. I won't be there that long, but I'll be there just long enough to track down who I can and say thank you to them.
Life's too short, right?
Yo, God, no, you like, there's not, that's the other thing, being a minimalist, there's not a lot that actually fucking matters. If you realize this, you do what you love with who you love. I really don't know what else means a damn in this life, because you can't take any of this with you.
Yeah, exactly. And so many of the people I know back home might be living paycheck to paycheck, but they're happy as crap
Yeah.
in their life, right? So that's the trick there. You just need just enough to get, to where you're happy, right? You don't need all this stuff behind me, for instance, all the things that I've collected over the years. Like if it happened, I had to get rid of it all. I mean, I'd be like, okay, it sucks, but oh well, right? I can be happy without it. It's just stuff in the end. Right?
Yeah, no, and that's it. Like, it's just so, like, since I've been back in Calgary for the last like year and a bit, I've been purging everything. I purged a lot of my books, my music, my stuff, because honestly, like, that's the thing. Like, from the pandemic, I couldn't see this stuff for years. So now I come back. It's like, what do I want to enjoy again someday? Because again, someday I will be living in a house again. Someday I'm going to have a room like yours, where there's all this cool little shit in there that's mine, right? God willing. And what do I care about enough that I want to display to the world at all, right? And that's the point I'm at. It's like, this is literally, like, I've hit that point in my life where I'm either all in or all out. I no longer worry about what anyone else thinks. And it's a great spot.
Yep. And that's what it takes. Like, when I decided to leave Nova Scotia, I did it on just like, I was at that point. I got nothing. I was, my only option, my foster mother was nice enough to take me in, but I would have been living on the side of the mountain. It would have been 40 minutes bike ride for me to get anywhere. So there's no transit. There's no easy way for me to get anywhere. Yes, I could borrow the car every now and then probably, but I'm borrowing her car, and you know what I mean? Like, you just feel like what's next? How can I balance? What do I got to do? I got to take a gamble, or I got to something's got to change, right? And that's the feeling.
You just got to change it.
You can't, sometimes you can't just sit there and stew on it and go, no. So a lot of people do. They don't. As I said, most people I know probably wouldn't go outside the bubble, and some of us do, and that's just the way we are, right? It's just different. Nothing's right, nothing's wrong in that. It's just we're all different in how we react to stuff.
Well, here's the thing, and this is how I decide. It's not whether you stay in the bubble or you go out of the bubble. That is entirely your choice. But I think you got to be honest about what you really want, right? So Calgary's now got a much bigger homeless problem than it had. I ran into one of my buddies that's on the street. He's on the street. I ran into him just literally by accident about 3 weeks ago, right? And now he's telling me stories about, like, he was working in the pro wrestling business as a referee.
Oh, cool.
Right? Got a lot of matches under his belt, started doing some stuff. And I'm thinking to myself in my head, you got all this stiff stuff happening with you, all this good stuff. Why not go to the next level? Why not leave your comfort zone? Because it's got to be better than where you're at. But then I realized that's what I think.
Yes.
What does he actually want?
Yes.
How does he see himself?
Yeah.
Where does he want to go? Because here's the thing. If you have absolutely nothing, the big advantage you have is you're free. There is legitimately nothing.
Exactamundo.
Right?
I have 7 foster brothers, and some of them, are just getting by in life, but they're the happiest people you'll
absolutely
meet. You know what I mean? Like, they're happy where they're at, and that's what's important in the end.
Yeah. So, but you gotta be honest.
But he's got, yeah. just like you said, yeah, you got to be honest with yourself. Yeah, you
Yeah.
got to and know what you're happy, where you're happy, and where you're not.
Yeah.
Right.
Are you happy or are you settling? I think that's the real question, right? The real question is like, okay, my side gig. So this year, Doran, I got to work for the Calgary Flames.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's cool. So that's a nice thing to be able to put on a resume too.
No, I legitimately am putting it on a resume this week too.
Right.
Because again, I'm looking for something part time slash
Yeah.
full time, like for the next few months, like whatever, right? So the thing is, right? I got this really cool gig under my belt, right? But for me, right, it's like, okay, this was fun. I loved the job. I enjoyed the job, but it's not what I want, right? I'm glad I did it. I'm the experience. I got to meet Daryl Sutter. I actually met
Oh,
Daryl Sutter.
nice.
Nice guy. Like legitimately, not what you see on the media is, I guess.
Right, right. Yeah.
But no, he was like
A
we
lot
were.
of people love being coached by him, but he's got to be has to have some kind of charisma or
Oh,
yeah,
he's genuinely a sweet dude. Like
yeah,
he like I will say this, like anyone like we literally just were talking. His one of his sons played for the development team, so he was there for that. So he just comes and stops by, says a quick hello.
yeah.
He talked with us about who he was rooting for in the NHL playoffs because he wasn't
Uh,
right. Like this is just fun stuff, right?
yeah.
Right. We talked about the fires going on up north because he lives up there, so I mean it's close to
He's a country boy in the end. Him and his
home.
family, if I remember correctly, they
Yeah,
grew up. Yeah,
absolutely.
they're
So
he's
I mean,
that's again explains his niceness too, like to a
no,
degree.
he's legitimately like I could see why people enjoy him. I could also see why people wouldn't too. It goes. I could see both ways of that. Um, but at the same time, like nothing but nice to me. I got to meet him because of where I was at, and That's the cool thing about the job is you meet people from all walks of life there. So let's just say for sake of argument, I said if I stayed another year, I don't think I'm doing that, but let's say I did. That's as good a job for me as perfect a job for me on the meantime
Yeah.
as anything because honestly, right? What else do I care about,
You're
right?
enjoying it. You're happy. You were
Yeah,
happy with that job to it. Yeah.
yeah. I would do it again. I would do it another year if I had to be here another year. I'd do it another year. But I don't. How do I put this? But that would be set. But if I wait, but if I did that with the way I feel now, it would be settling,
Mm.
right? And that
Right.
would be right. That would be okay. That's your consolation prize, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's not. I think a lot of people settle for their consolation prizes in life.
Yeah. But if you still have your long term plan, let's say you did that for another year, I understand what you're saying. You got to first off, you got to pick some point and make your best, as you say, get your finances in order, get all that stuff going. And if you knew you could be happy at the job and make an extra year's worth of money to pad yourself a bit more to be more resilient as you go. I don't know. You'd have to look at the financial situation of your
Well,
freelancer versus your finances of your.
because okay, so at the point, okay, so this is where I got to up like for the last few months. I was making more as a freelancer than I was working there.
So yeah,
So I mean that's the thing. Like there's a point. Now don't get me wrong, and I'm not knocking. There's no knock to the job. I might again, depending on how things work out the next few months, this might end up happening. But there's a difference of I'm trying to make things work. They don't work out. I settle up, I rebuild again, and then try again down the road. That's one thing.
mm,
But the other thing, but the thing is, you have to, how do I put this? You have to realistically look at some things too, because again, you get caught in the cycle too long. I learned this when I worked at Pure Later. I probably should have left that job a couple of years sooner than I did. I'm just being very honest about that. Right? Probably should have. Not because I would have been necessarily ready to learn what I needed to learn per se, but there's a point of comfort too. And you've got to be very
right,
careful where there's a line. If you know you can get by on the minimum, again, if you're happy, that's different. If you're very happy, that doesn't this conversation doesn't matter. If you're happy, then it doesn't matter what it looks like to anybody else. But if you're not happy, if you're not getting what you're going for, then you got to be very honest about what you're doing and what you're not doing, right? Now, again, staying for a few more months isn't necessarily a terrible thing. On the other hand, right? If I don't push myself to try now, right? Right, that'd be if I don't push myself now, it'd be like,
You don't think you will
okay,
later. So that's what you have to
what?
be. Yeah. You don't think you will later?
I think there's a time limit to everything.
No.
I do think there's a time limit to everything. What I think it is this. My job isn't necessarily to succeed at the big goal I want. It's not necessarily the prerogative to succeed in the moment, but I should be doing everything I can to succeed. Now, let's say it doesn't work out, hypothetically. Okay, everything I do doesn't work out. Okay, I got stuff to fall back to. I can build, be resilient, and then try again when we get to the
So
springtime.
yeah,
Right?
and I think that's the big difference possibly. And I don't know what your fallback is. In my case, I didn't have a fallback. Right.
Yeah.
So I was pushed to keep going forward. Right. In,
Well,
in my life,
that's just it.
you know what I mean?
And that's it. But the thing is, there's an advantage to that.
There is.
You're right.
But
There's a razor's edge to. I'm what I except
yeah,
me and you have been through similar hard times. I think that in a sense, like similar stuff. When you're at the razors, again, you don't ever want to be at that point. But if you are there,
you
you
can
got no
live on
choice.
that. That's power.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. So I want to keep myself somewhat like I say this rule 8. One of my biggest rules in life is to stay uncomfortable. Like just to legitimately stay
Okay.
uncomfortable, and at least a little bit. I'm not saying like deliberately try to make it as difficult as possible for yourself,
Right.
but you have to understand that you don't push to change unless you have a little bit of discontent somewhere in your life, right?
Right.
That's just the way it is. Again, this is what I think of Michael Jordan when he was playing at his apex with
Oh.
the Bulls.
Yeah.
Would look for reasons to be pissed off at the other team. Would look for
Competitive. Brutally competitive. Yeah.
yeah, well, brutally, like almost like to a fault. But the one thing you can't knock about that was he realized that he had to constantly keep himself a little bit out of razor's edge.
Yeah.
There's a good thing. So if I say, okay, I'm trying to get off the cliff. I'm trying to get off the cliff right now. Even if I don't, again, I can afford to fall back. But should I? That's a much more difficult question, right? Because again, it's about momentum. If I'm pushing for something, right, things have a tendency. The mind's a powerful thing. If I push for something, the mind opportunities to go in that direction come out of nowhere. If I don't push, well, then I can stay where I am. My foot just will tailor to that. So this is the razor's edge trick, right? It's you have to again. You don't always have to put yourself at the edge of everything. All the God, no one can do that forever.
Right.
But at the same time, if you want to make a legitimate change in your life, you can't afford to just sit your ass in bed and feel sorry for yourself either, right? You
Yeah,
gotta
but some people will. Some people will think that. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Some people will focus on that though and say, oh, oh well, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to settle, and I'm just going to be unhappy.
yeah.
Right.
No, it may not be. They'll justify it in another way. They'll say, "Well, it's the right thing. It's
The
the
rest of the
safer option."
world's the problem. This is the problem. We can always say there's problems. This world is not perfect, as you were hitting at earlier. It's not perfect at all, and it's how to navigate it and how to survive it. Right. It's the biggest video game out there is life. You know
Absolutely.
what I mean? You got to power up. You got to know when to use your your special cards. As you were saying about card collecting, whatever magic card or whatever you're doing, you got to know when to play them. Right.
Yeah,
And that's what
absolutely.
you're
No,
doing. You're making a play. Right.
yeah, making a play. Now again, and this is the last time I'm going to say it because I'm going to say it the other way going forward. I know there's a chance it won't work.
Yeah.
Right. And the reason why I'm going to stop saying it like that
Yeah.
is because the more I say it, the more likely it might happen. Mind's a powerful thing, right? The mind is a very powerful thing.
And I believe in a saying that that I've learned over the years working in high tech too is, and again, using a corporate thing is kind of a weird thing to think, but we all learn in different ways, right? But they always say fail fast. You always hear that, right?
Mhm.
Don't suffer for longer than you have to. You know what I mean?
That's it, right? Right. That no. I look. Here's the thing. I look at corporate and commercial stuff today differently than I did 20 years ago, right? Ironically, if you truly want to be anti-corporate to anyone listening, you have to understand what they actually do, right?
Right.
And do well. You have to actually understand it. Most people don't. The fact of the matter is, like, these corporations got as big as they are because something they did worked
Oh
and
yeah.
worked very well.
Yes.
And you'd be a fool to ignore it.
Yep.
Like a fool,
Right.
right? So, like, I mean, heck, let's go to the simplest term. McDonald's as a franchise. We all know the food's not the greatest at McDonald's. We all know that. But we can't deny that there's a McDonald's everywhere. Like,
And when they started to realize that people were getting against their food not being healthy, they started to change.
yeah.
They started to offer more things like apples, and they evolved with how people were reacting to them.
Yeah. No,
You know
and
what I
that's,
mean? That's the smart thing, is having the ear to the ground,
yeah.
survive.
Cor-
Yeah,
corporations move slower than the average person.
the ship
That's
doesn't turn. Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
right. They can't
Fast.
move. They say fail fast, but they can't necessarily change quickly. That's the thing about
No.
the corporate structure is they it's a much more complex machinery. And
Yep.
yes, they realize you want to take this piece out, but we can't necessarily go as quickly as we'd like.
Yeah. And I worked. So my first opportunity, I was working overnights at Corel, which was the largest software company in Canada at the time, formed in '89. So way before, if you think about that, it was before the internet. They were releasing software, and they were ahead of Adobe, and Adobe totally pushed back them. But anyways, so they were a small ship. So that was always what the CEO would tell you. We can turn quick. The big guys can't. So we need to be nimble, right? That's how we succeed. The big ship can't turn. But then I've also had the experience of, for the last 9 years before we just got acquired recently, I worked for Stanley Black and Decker, and it was really interesting because there's a multi-billion-dollar company, with I believe tens of thousands of employees. I never really looked at the number, but it's a big ship. But they were really, really smart about things. They diversified everything. So that's how they didn't survive on just their tools. So it's called Stanley Black and Decker because we all know Black and Decker and Stanley tools. But they own so much more, like DeWalt, and
Oh
they
yeah.
they took over like so many different brands. But they also diversified. Like, you wouldn't think of them as a software company, but every time you look at a door when you go into Walmart, if you look up, you'll see the word Stanley. So they're into so many different markets. That's how they keep themselves afloat for over 100. They've been around for like a
Oh
hundred
yeah.
years.
It, it,
You know what I
it,
mean? Like, because they're smart with how they do things.
well, yeah. So I mean, heck, you can look at even a lot of companies do that. Like Coke and Pepsi are the same way. I've talked about
Oh,
them
yeah.
on the podcast with another guy. Like Coke, like you would look at if you looked at food and you would look at Coke's label or Pepsi's label on stuff, you'd be amazed how much they're in.
Oh,
Like
really? Interesting.
this is Coke,
All right.
right?
Yes. Yeah.
Right. This is Coke. Potato chips, like like most of the potato chip lines are owned by one or the other. Right. Right. Even other food purchases. It's
Right.
amazing to see just how wide, right, they really are. Because again, now there's slightly different philosophy because Coke is evergreen, so they have a slightly different approach than Pepsi, but they essentially have the same model. And it's like, and all these big companies do this. They all, heck, even publishing, okay? Comic books. DC is owned by Warner. Marvel's owned by Disney. IDW, we'll see who owns them in a year or two, because I think that's
Right.
that's going to happen there. Dark Horse is owned, I think, by some media company as well. Like you have these bigger companies that are like, okay, we need to constantly keep diversifying because we don't want to pay the government taxes, which is part of the reason, and B, right, it's the nature of the beast.
And if you own a bunch of different markets, one goes south, the other one might be going up. So it makes you more balanced.
Yeah,
Is what
exactly.
I was always told, because you can survive one going south because the other one's going high. So it
It's
makes you
it,
just more around the world in what
it's
you do.
very rare that everything goes to hell at once. Like
Yeah.
it can happen, But
Right.
it's not.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
at that point, it doesn't matter who you are. You're just basically like this.
Yeah, it's a recession or whatever situation.
Y-
Yeah.
Right. Well, even in a recession, it doesn't usually. Some things go up in a recession. Some things go down in
Well,
a recession.
this is what was amazing about working there is they had this whole plan for when a recession happens. It's actually exciting for to a degree for them to be in a recession, which you wouldn't hear from most because they have all of this capital saved up, and now it's buy time because everybody else is in trouble.
Well,
But
no,
it's not the first time,
no.
right? Now it's time we can go grab this, we can go grab that. You know what I mean?
Well,
We
no,
can
no.
now take over this.
And
Yeah.
that's every corporate. That's every corporation. But
Right,
also
but a lot of
like
them don't have that money. Like only the big boys have all that cash laying around.
even some like again, I think what's happened. I think this is the big sea change since 2008. People realize that okay, when things are good, when things are really good, people it's almost now foreign to understand that concept in some way. I mean, we've been through this like rough patch for a while now.
Right.
Right, it's almost foreign because it's but most companies realize like oh, there's so many opportunities. Money changes hands the most during recessions.
And yeah, and as well, we have this whole inflation thing. One of the funniest things I did, I ran into this old timer, and I can't remember where, but he mentioned about inflation, and I go, yeah, a lot of people are struggling with inflation, and he laughed. He said, my mortgage on my house at one point 30 years ago was like 10 or 15%. He says people don't understand how hard it used to be in some senses. You know what I mean?
Oh
So
yeah,
yeah,
no, he's right because if it was 10 or 15% today, everybody'd be out of business. Like
then
everybody.
yeah,
The difference between his era and ours is that the average person does not have the diversity to survive. If you
yep,
have a house, chances are that is your only source of wealth.
yep,
Chances are,
yep,
right? I'm trying like again. I'm doing Patreon. I'm doing some other things right now. And the thing is, I realize if the more diversified incomes I have, the better chance I have in the long run of accruing a fortune, right? And again, because I'll have different. Like I said, the cool thing about being a freelancer, Doran, I get multiple paychecks sometimes in a week.
right. So what I did years ago is again on the same type of philosophy. Realized at Krill, I didn't know how far I was going to go. My career was
Yeah.
going to go, and to get from there to work for a multi-billion-dollar company was pretty cool. But the one thing I learned too was I always wanted to have a backup plan, right? So I became a web designer and a web developer, just so I could do that in my spare time. You know what I mean? I didn't just sit in one
Yeah.
spot waiting. So as you said, I had a small business for a while doing web design, but then I wanted to get to my comics, and I said, you know what? I don't care about this as much anymore. I'd rather be doing my comic books. I'm just in a good enough spot for that. So I stopped doing something that was making me money to something now that costs me money. But that's life sometimes, right? If I don't invest and try, I would have, as you kind of saying, if you don't try and get outside that and change, if you don't try it, I'll never know, right? So
But also, here's the thing: IP has the most upside of any investment you get into. But it does has the biggest upside.
oh, lawyers love to sue. And yeah, it's another thing I learned too in the big corporation world that they have lawyers set aside just to protect intellectual property and to sue to make money off of it. So you settle, right?
Yeah,
Seeing
absolutely.
multiple lawsuits, being in big companies, and even in small companies like Krell wasn't that big of a company. It was a small ship that was nimble, but they had people who would sue when they got took over at one point, and they got sued. I remember at one point over the word mask in our software. Well, Adobe has mask in their software, but it's an old term that a printing press company in Germany had trademarked years ago that has nothing to do with computer masks, like a
Hmm.
computer and masking something out. But they had so they sued, right? And we had to do all this work to adjust. The thing is, it probably cost us probably more to take everybody and find out and prove that we've used mask for years, and that they failed suing Adobe for it, and they were just trying to find another way to make money, and that lawyer had enough time to try and do it, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, it goes one step farther. Okay, you're doing comics, right? Those comics could become video games, action figures, cups, T-shirts, cock rings. What the fuck? Right, whatever. Right?
Yeah.
You have this ability, like you're investing in yourself, and what you're now, whatever comes from this, who knows? Like again, it's like anything else. Like you can't necessarily plan like, well, I'm going to be this big million seller, right? But
Not even the plan.
right.
Yep.
But you're putting yourself out there. You have a solid enough concept.
Yep.
You this time next year, buddy, maybe I drive into Ottawa, you'd be like, hey, I got a show on this network and I'm making stupid money. And I'll be like, high five. Right.
Yeah.
Because it could happen. It right. Like
It can if the right people find you. But to me, it's actually something else. So when I was poor and I had nothing, I've always done this, right? I've always, like, the filing cabinet back there is from when I was a teenager. But I was poor. Nobody cared to give me art classes. I wasn't going to become an artist. I wasn't going to become. There was no path for me towards that. To me, it's about a legacy and just getting my stuff out there. It's almost like I have to tell these. I don't even know how to explain it. These stories just characters pop into my head, and all the different things, and you know what I mean. It's always been that way, and it's just like they're stuck in my filing cabinet. To get them out there, and if they last past my lifetime, like, that's what's cool about a book and a story. It lasts forever, right? That book is printed. You can pass that around to 100 people. When I create my website, that's there forever. I was initially, giving some of them away for free. I'm not doing that as much anymore in the same fashion, but you know what I mean? The point is the stories are there for someone to learn. Like that's what I love about a comic book. A lot of people say, "Oh, you only got 2 issues or whatever," right? You know what I mean? We need more media. We need more. That in 5 years I'll be there. In 10 years I'll be there. But right now, it's brand new. Every time I go to a con, they've never seen me before, right? That person who sees me is seeing me for the first time. So they don't know my comic. I started, doing, let's say, The Forsaken Future a decade ago. Well, they don't know that, right? They have no clue, and they're seeing something they like, and they're willing to look at it now, right?
there's no dates on that. There's no dates on an idea. I mean,
No. And a story. Yeah.
There's no dates on it.
You can go watch a DVD, and if you enjoy a movie, and go watch the DVD later, as you say, or revisit your comic book collection or whatever. It's still there for you to do it.
Yeah, that's the whole point, right? Like what I want, I mean, what you want is what everybody wants, right? Is you have something you like. Forsaken Future is you care about it. You have something you feel that's worth saying, and you're telling that story, little or as much or as little of it at a time as you possibly can,
Yeah.
right? And it doesn't matter what it looks like. Again, this goes back to what I said earlier. It doesn't matter what the rest of the world sees. It's about it's about you.
Your happiness and I'm very fortunate to be at the spot that I could do this, right? I never thought I would be. You know what I mean? So it's like, why not? Why not see if, by the time I retire, it could be something, as you say, I'd be happy if it just makes a little bit of money when I retire, right? You know what I mean? Make some of the money back.
Oh, it might be more than that. Like,
Right.
I mean, it depends on, I mean, you have to think about like strategies for the future to some degree, right? More on who you're reaching. But if you play your cards right, even in a couple of years, it could make you some serious dough. Like, it really could. Right? It's just how to put this. Again, going back to it's like you have a concept, an idea, you want to share it to the world. You want to meet people who are somewhat like-minded, right? Because that's what this is about. And you're going to go out there and you're going to talk and you're going to tell comic book stories with people who love comic books. And really, again, that is not a bad way to be.
No. It's again, it's you see the excitement sometimes of some people. You can tell when I go to a con, it's very easy to see who's I collect Marvel, I collect DC, right? When there's certain people who just love seeing something different, and that's. You know what I mean? You see them they come right up and they're like all interested and all excited. I had a young lady at Fanaticon last year. It was so cool. She was with her boyfriend, I assume, or her brother. But anyway, she was with somebody, and she was all excited to see the first issue of Raycast. She's like, "What?" She was a horror fan, right? It's like, "What is this?" She's like, all like fangirling out, right? I'm like,
Sure.
"Oh yeah, no, yeah." No, it's just a nice feeling to see that somebody is that interested in it, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's what this is about. Like you're trying to create stuff that look. I have an Alice in Wonderland Greek mythology story. I did my Watcher Saga for poetry stuff. I got a novel out. I got another novel, again, another Patreon plug, ladies and gentlemen. You can read my current release right now on my Patreon for a whole $1 a month. So, right. And the thing is, what I'm doing is all I'm doing is it's like, okay, I'm trying to reach people who like this kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's it. There's no other. There's something else to it. I just want to tell a story that makes me really excited to tell it, and I want people to read it that are going to be really excited. Now, I'm going to do my research. I'm going to make. I'm going to be looking beyond a typical comic convention and think, who else might like this, right?
Yeah.
But that's again to maximize my chances of finding people that are going to like my stuff. That's it.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm very fortunate too in the sense I've been doing this now for a number of years. So I've worked with a variety of artists. So I was just doing right now I'm working on putting together the art of Whitefire Comics. I realized very quickly I never really thought about it before, but how many different artists I've worked with, and I have a good eye for art. So I think I've collected a lot of very cool, different types of art styles that maybe might be a nice art reference book. Like I have some art reference books I use that I'm hoping that other people might like. That might be able to help them, and it's all professional quality stuff, right? So it's that type of stuff is kind of neat to look at. That it's again that as you say for revenue streams, art reference books, usually are a little more expensive. But I'm going to do it like my friend Corey did with Sister Mercy. I'll have some comic versions of it. And then I'll have the hardcover version of it and see how that goes, right?
Well, sure, but everything is built to a different audience, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is something that creators need to understand, right? I have so right now on my Patreon, I have the rough version of this novel I'm putting together. I'm way ahead on the novel, so it's not like it's going to be late anytime soon, so people can read it as I go. Now I'm going to finish the novel before it's all released on my Patreon at some point, right? I'm going to finish it. I'm going to revise it. So I'm going to give a reward. Now, when I physically print the book, people that support it on Patreon are going to get a very special reward, like something exclusively for them.
Sure. Yeah.
When I go to Kickstarter, I'm going to create. So I'm a big fan. I don't know if you've ever seen it. Have you ever seen Doran Cook's Parker novels?
I don't think so. No, can't say so.
Oh my God, they're beautiful. They are absolutely beautiful. Like they're Doran Cook taking a classic story and telling it. I want to do something like that.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yep.
Because Kickstarter is a collector's market.
Right. That's the way I feel about Kickstarter too. Yes.
Yeah, no, that's just what it is. It's exactly what it is. It is not the reason why comics do fantastic on Kickstarter by and large is because it's an opportunity not only to invest in something new, but also it's to get something special. Right? Novelists struggle with this because they have not fully tapped into this idea of, okay, this is a collector's audience. What cool shit can I offer these guys?
Right. Yeah.
Right? Comic, it's easier to do that. It's a little easier to do that than a book, but you can still do it with a book.
There's still other things. Yeah, I've been trying to think outside the box. Literally, I have. I don't know if I can turn this. So I've actually bought a laser, so I can make my own custom Kickstarter solutions. Like I got some leather bookmarks I'm going to do for Rake Hell 2 right now. I'm hoping to do and things like that, so that it's kind of neat. I'll be engraving onto laser leather, but like onto leather, engraving some of the art that I've got onto that to try and make it. It should look pretty cool. I'm hoping. We'll see. But yeah, I'm trying to figure out different ways that make it more cool in the sense that it's not like a lot of people are doing the same thing, right?
So okay, I'll tell you what I'm doing. So one of my chapters in my novel has a karaoke scene because they're competing for a piece of the Holy Grail, and they have to actually. They do it, and they have to do it in a singing. They have to because it's nature of the bar, right?
Of course, right.
So the way I set the story up is actually currently, and I'm writing where I'm at right now. They figured out that the Holy Grail or the pieces of Holy Grail in this universe are scattered in the city in all these different bars and all these different contests. So the one I'm showing on screen is the karaoke one because it's fun. Right? Because who doesn't like to get a little bad?
Who wouldn't say I could win that? I could have a chance to get a piece of the Holy Grail if I was.
Yeah, but thing
people love karaoke.
Yeah, right. So here's the Kickstarter reward. I will actually do a karaoke night for my audience.
Like an online karaoke thing, or like in person?
No, I'll actually make CDs. Like I'll actually make something physical for them to do it. Now I'll destroy those songs. Don't get me wrong. Like they'll be but I will kill the songs. They will die. But
the effort will be there, though.
Yeah, exactly. But
kill it in a good way.
Well, I don't know about killing it in a good way. I'm not saying I'm good at this, folks. But here's the thought process. Okay, this is the thought process. This is about building a relationship with people, giving something very unique and one of a kind, and something special. I wouldn't do this for every book, but this book, it works because there's a legitimate karaoke scene in the book.
Yeah.
So it works.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. In
Right?
Breakout 2, there's a, so I'm actually putting things into the comic. So there's actually a flask in it that Keeper has with fluid in it. I won't go much more about the fluid, but the point is that there's a reason it's a flask and it has that emblem on it. Well, now I can laser engrave it. I actually bought, so the idea was I found the item first on Amazon, so I can offer it as a special reward to some people.
Yeah.
That if they want the flask, you know what I mean, that matches to the comic. You know what I mean? If they have interest in it, then fantastic. And if they think it's cool, you know, why not? So yeah, I even
But there's other things you can do too, like for example, book plates. Like especially if you got a laser for that.
Oh, there's tons. It starts to
Yeah.
open up. I'm trying to. Oh, I don't know where I put it. Too much stuff. Oh, there it is. So for the last Kickstarter, again, this wasn't something you got as a reward, in the normal sense. But I did these. So the water in the future obviously is a problem, right? In the Forsaken future, I have this water ad in there. This kind of funny water ad that's meant to be sarcastic, almost like from almost like the RoboCop era is the idea. So it's Cindy Crawford instead of Cindy Crawford. So Cindy Crawford, you know, she's a cybernetic model of the year, but she drinks ash water, right? But the idea is that you have to pay more for clean water.
Yep.
And so if you don't have the same amount of money as Cindy does, well, you can try our lesser brands, and not, the color of them is all getting worse.
Oh God.
It's going from, you know what I mean? So the less money, less money you pay for it, the less filtering you basically get. But it's called ash water. So I actually gave away one of these and sent it out as just when I was doing the Kickstarter as a reward. But I made one for myself, and it's called Impact Flavored, Impactolicious. This flavor. So, anyways, it's Impact flavored by ash water.
Right.
So I had to get one for myself.
Impact flavor. Is there like a slogan? There should be like a slogan in there.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
Yeah.
Wow. Right.
It just adds flavor. It just adds flavor. It's not going to mutate you. And then there's a little actual disclaimer. It's so tiny right here, going down the side, saying that they're not responsible for any mutations or side effects caused by their delicious, refreshing product.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's not our fault you grew tentacles.
No,
it's not our fault.
Did you enjoy the product? Come on, it was delicious.
That's right. That's right. No, but that's the thing, right? Like there's so like this is the thing, like from a novelist perspective, Kickstarter is still relatively untapped. Still, some novels have done well with it, but by and large, and I'm not talking even the Brandon Sanderson like exception to that rule. I'm talking just like people like Russell Nolte. There are novelists who have done quite well on the platform. But
I was just gonna say, have you tried Amazon as well? Like Amazon is supposed to be phenomenal for books.
Amazon. Okay, I have my books are on Amazon right now. Like I have it's there. The honest answer, I think, honestly, like the more I research it, we've kind of gone into this weird full circle thing in that. Remember, so back in our day when we started this internet craze and we were doing newsletters and shit like that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
We're back to that phase again. We're back to that point in the circle where it's just like you need your own platform to do your thing. That's where we're at. That's why I'm doing Patreon. That's why I'm doing other things, because what I'm realizing is all these platforms can disappear like that.
Yeah, no, you exactly, and your fan base can go. You're responsible. I'm trying to get this in. So I have a friend who's doing really well on Kickstarter. Right, he's done really very well and made good money off his comics. But he's not collecting his emails. I'm like, what are you talking about? Every time you send out your Kickstarter reward survey, you should be saying, hey, do you mind joining my mailing list? I'm not going to, it's what it says on every one of mine, even though I don't have a lot of fans on it. But you know what I mean? I'm not going to spam you or anything. I'm not going to sell it or anything. But you should be collecting who these people are. They like your product and they want to see you. You know, if something happens and they don't see your next Kickstarter campaign, you want to be able to talk to them.
Well, yeah.
They're invested, right? They're invested in your product.
But that's my point. Like, this is what this is really about. Like, this is, to a lesser extent, and I'm saying this with all the great respect in the world, our products don't matter. It's our ability to reach out and connect to people, that's what matters today. And if we're not doing that to any significant degree, we are selling ourselves short.
And it is something that some people are good at and some people are not. Like, you know what I mean? My friend is really good at connecting with people and that. But again, in this particular element, he's not worried about it because he's making so much money. He's not really thinking about it. But I'm like, man, go and you want to have a mailing list that every time you're sending out, like, right? Just again, it's not that you're trying to capture people's email and be evil with it. It's like we're trying to keep that, as you say, the communication alive.
Well,
Because yeah.
well, okay. So I also subscribe to a lot of sales style, like advertising copy emails right now. They email every day. Now, some people will tell you shouldn't do that. I would tell you, I'm not saying you should do it. You got to figure out what works for you.
Right.
But the reason why they do it every single day, it makes sense. I'm going out there. I'm constantly now. If I'm reading their stuff, I'm constantly reading their stuff. I'm constantly listening
Engaged. Yeah.
to their whole spiel. They're also now they feel more like people, right? If it's done correctly, sales copy doesn't look like sales copy. It actually looks very, very much like something you or I are doing right now.
Yeah.
And that's the whole of the secret. It's not it's about those human relationship interaction things. We all desire that connection. And when things are going well, it's like, well, I don't need this stuff right now. And that's the worst way to think because it's not going to go well forever, right? What you got to think is, okay, this is my time for it to shine. Great. But while it's shining, let's set myself up in such a way that when it's not doing quite as well as it is right now, I'm still good.
Yeah, and they also say with the comic stuff, a lot of people can get to issue 4, let's say issue 4 or 5, and they'll have enough of a fan base that they don't need to keep doing Kickstarters. If you're collecting that group of people, like some of the videos I watched on it, you should be in an okay spot that it's not that big of a deal. Which is an interesting thought. But back to your comment on making it personal, everything personal is a lot of the times, like there's a company called BCW Supplies that I'm a member of. They don't say BCW Supplies whenever they send me an email. It says Nancy something, and I now know them as Nancy whenever I get it in my email. You know what I mean? Oh, it's Nancy. It's not probably not a real person. Maybe it is, but it's not BCW's trying to sell you something. It's, hey, wants to give you. Nancy's contacting you about an offer, right? You know what I mean? Hey, here's a deal for you. Makes it more personal.
But that's the thing. You're not going to buy a logo. You're not going to, and honestly, if you are a comic creator listening to this and it's like, I'm not saying don't keep doing Kickstarter. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you should at that point be looking at creating a direct line for yourself.
Diversity. Exactly like we talked about with the big companies. Diversify. You need the email list, do your Kickstarter, do everything you can, put it online for digital copies, put it everywhere as you can. Diversify everything so you can make a little bit more on everything.
Well, that's it. Because ultimately, and like I mentioned this, the real money in this business is selling directly to your audience. That's the real money.
Yeah.
It's not Amazon. It's not going wide. It's not Diamond. It's not. Those are platforms, and I'm not saying don't use them. I'm saying be aware of them for what they are, a platform. They're not your platform. You need a platform. Again, I've been toiling. The podcast has been a platform for me for years. It's one. Now I'm trying to take that podcast and diversify it into like I've been building this brand for almost 10 years. Right? Now it has evolved and pivoted and changed and grown quite a bit in those 10 years. But the whole point is people know me for this and have known me for this for a very long time. That's super important because it's easier now for me to transition into other things because I have this backlist of work to my credit.
Right. Yep. They know you, right? If people know you, then it's, you can go do other things. It's like anything, like, look at someone like The Rock, who was a wrestler, right? he went to movies, and a lot of the wrestling fans followed him, and that's what made his fan base enough for him to become go Hollywood big time, right?
Well, actually, he is an interesting story. I think a better example, believe it or not, he's an interesting story in the sense because he struggled actually with, like, when he was put into the position he was put in initially. He had a huge struggling point because yes, he was known for his wrestling stuff, but he actually had to do a major departure from his wrestling base to establish himself in Hollywood. Same with Dave Batista, right? He did the same. He did something similar because there's a carryover, but there's always going to be a little bit of that, especially I think more so The Rock than Batista. Batista has become a much more. I think he's the better actor of the two of them, to be perfectly honest.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. I do think he's the better actor. I'm not saying he's the most charismatic of the two. I'm not saying
no,
but he's the better actor. The roles he plays, not just Dax the Destroyer, but everything else he does.
He really thinks about things. Like, he's seriously invested when he tries to do something. It seems, from what I've seen. Yeah.
Yeah, he puts a lot of thought and passion and work into it, right? So when you see that, it's like, okay. Now, The Rock, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying The Rock can't act. That's not what I'm saying.
He just uses charisma.
Yeah, his charisma is so ridiculously, he is, The Rock is today's Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's who The Rock is. And I don't think that's a bad spot to be in at all. But that's who he is. He is the modern day Arnold, right? I'm sure if The Rock had heard me say that, he probably would take that as a compliment, right? I think probably.
Hopefully.
Right?
You don't want him waiting outside your house with a bat or anything.
Well, it's okay.
Big boy. It's okay. You got it. It's under control.
It's okay. I'll throw a roommate at him. And
wait a second. You shouldn't be throwing your roommates around. That's not nice. You got a catapult there somewhere? What's going on here?
Angry Samoan with a bat. I'm not dealing with that. I'm sorry. I'm not dealing.
You got a plan. That's the important.
That's the important thing. Right. No, I say it like that because watching those two, they both had an adjustment period going into something new. Like every time you change, you just are constantly evolving and you're constantly going through struggles. I think the reason why people get comfortable staying where they're at, because there's a point where you're like, man, I'm tired of this fucking struggling shit. Right? I'm just tired. I don't want to do it all over again. But to get to anywhere you want to go, you have to be willing to go through those processes. Even guys that big, that well off, they had to go through almost like a down to get right back up.
Well,
right?
Yeah, even if you look at his early wrestling career, it wasn't going well for him when he first went into the WWE until he got to break free of how they were kind of booking him, or how they wanted his character to be. Once they got him on the mic and stuff and gave him some time to do it his way, it changed. I was reading something actually about even Stone Cold Steve Austin. The same sort of thing is Vince McMahon got tired. It wasn't, the ringmaster wasn't working for him, but once he broke free of that and had his own character is when he actually exploded and became this huge phenomenon.
My favorite Steve Austin story is actually, he wanted to be a heel. I remember this. He actually never wanted to be a babyface. He wanted to be a heel. Problem was he was too funny. Seriously, I remember this, right? I remember because I was a teenager and I was there for the Stone Cold thing. He would make fun of Bret Hart for crying about being screwed all the time, right? and the thing is, I watched Steve Austin in his WCW days. I was that much of a wrestling fan.
Stunning Steve,
I watched Stunning Steve, and I watched Hollywood Blonde Steve Austin. Is awesome. But Steve Austin in WWE, when he was ringmaster, he was whatever. But when he kind of was allowed to start talking,
right, and he started losing his hair, and he's now he's got to shave his head, right? So the look just kind of came
when
together.
When he shaved his head, he had a new look that fit, but also he was fucking funny.
His sayings are just ridiculous. They're ridiculously funny in a sense. He sounds so serious, right? But he's really being very.
Well, no, sometimes yes, but sometimes you can tell he's trying not to laugh too, right? Some of his shit, right?
Same with The Rock too. The Rock was pretty fun. The Rock and Sock connection was pretty funny.
Rock had the same problem. The Rock had the same problem. They
put him in a box.
Well, they put him in a box, but when he joined the Nation, he was slowly he was slowly being allowed to talk more and more. But when he started talking to himself in the third person, which was ridiculous in of itself, right? He did the stupidest elbow in pro wrestling, which, by the way, he did that because he wanted to see if he could crack the Undertaker. Like, that was why he invented that.
Really?
That's the real reason.
That's interesting.
Who knew?
But it
right?
took off, and like I mean, the 5 knuckle shuffle from Xena later on. It's funny because I watch a lot of the wrestling podcasts, and Jim Cornette has probably one of the most popular ones out there. But he knocks the current generation for not taking it so seriously. But I keep thinking back, well, the people's elbow is one of the silliest moves, right?
So
Energy waste, and so is there's so many things that really have been going on for years that he shouldn't be knocking AEW for over WWE, because there's been silliness for a while, and we've all been enjoying it. Like Mankind is Mick Foley is such a funny guy too. I mean, you put him with the Rock, it's silly. He's got a little sock on his hand with the. Anyways, Mr. Socko.
So people are knocking his booking now, but Vince McMahon was a genius back in the day. Like, he understood, like, people want to be entertained. I think the best modern WWE example of a sports entertainment match that's really good is the Jackass match Sami Zayn had with
at WrestleMania.
That match was funny, like, in a
was
good way.
Like,
it was. Now, was it like the greatest wrestling match of all? No, but it was so entertaining.
Yeah,
people were just having fun with it, and honestly, I think that match is actually kind of special, because Johnny Knoxville was a great story too. It was Johnny Knoxville and his friend standing up to the bully. And I thought that was it. It was done so well, like, just so well. And the thing is, Knoxville, again, it wasn't. It's theater. Like, pro wrestling at its best is theater with athletic elements in it. You don't necessarily. Now, again, I'm not going to question the athletics or toughness of anybody that does that for a living. It takes a certain degree of ability that a lot of people, like, you don't necessarily need to be the greatest athlete, but you have to have a certain degree of physical
coordination. For sure, coordination is important. Yeah, for sure. As well. There was this really big athlete, Bret Hart. Bret Hart was talking about it in one of his recent things I watched, and it was funny because I don't remember the guy's name, but he was like, Vince McMahon was huge on this guy. Like, he's like, this guy's, and Bret had to put him over. And he's like, he didn't want to put him over, but he realized at the time, it was before he was really popular and famous, that he had to kind of go with the flow. And this guy wasn't as good as wrestler. He's from a wrestling family, Bret Hart, but he's got to put this athlete over he was a super, like, amazing athlete. Looks like he's chiseled, stone and all this. It turns out he couldn't run the ropes well. So you don't think about that time. He said some people can't. He mentioned that, and I was like, oh, that's an interesting thought. Some people aren't coordinated enough to hit the ropes and come off them well. So what he had to do was design a match that played to the guy's things, and he made that guy look so good to Vince that Vince was so impressed with him. But later they found out that he wasn't really that great. But that's what, again, it's a great story because it just shows you, everybody will always tell you they liked working with Bret the Hitman Hart because he made you look better.
Bret was a great storyteller. Like, Bret Hart is an amazing, his work holds up today. He's one of the few wrestlers from that era that his work doesn't feel out of place. If you could come in today, wrestle that style, and it would work. Right, it would work. It's not as flashy as some of the other styles out there, but it all makes sense. Like, there's a reason he does. The thing is, like, again, there's this context of a story. MJF does a good job of telling this. Like, the whole point of the match is to win. Right. So everything MJF does in the match, it's same thing with Bret. Right, Bret's the same way. Yep. Everything Bret did, everything MJF did, was designed to win. Everything. So it all made sense. It was not none of the stuff felt out of place. None of the stuff felt like it was hokey. Like, you can have hokey in wrestling and it works. I mean, I literally watched Kenny Omega wrestle a blow-up doll. I mean,
you watch that? I've heard about it, but I've never actually seen that.
It's amazing because you can see how much by watching that, you can see how much one guy can make another guy. right?
That sounds like, yeah, that's an interesting point because it goes back to what Brett was saying about
Yeah.
how he, and someone like Diesel, Kevin Nash talks about if he had one more match, he would want to wrestle Brett again because he made him look so good.
Well, yeah,
Right?
but again, their match made sense.
Yeah.
Diesel was this big, strong guy that could overpower Brett. So Brett would try to go for his leg, try to take him down. Like again, it
Yeah.
makes sense. Both guys are trying to win,
Yeah.
right? Where the only thing I agree with Cornette, this is the only thing I agree with was Cornette. Everything I think a wrestler should do while they're in the ring should be designed in some way to win.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of things actually Cornette says, but I just some of them like that again when we were talking about kind of the weird stuff in wrestling. He's talking like get the indie guys over, and the trampoline stuff. I actually don't mind watching the athletic. I respect the athleticism of some of it, but I get where he's going to. Why are you ending your career? A lot of these people like this Darby Allin, I don't think he'll be around in 5 years if he keeps going the way he is. He's gonna hurt himself so bad. He's gonna be done.
Darby is smarter than his fundamentals are actually better than you think.
It's not that you can't take those type of bumps. If it's anything I've learned in life, just from being a shipper receiver and playing sports, even playing nets and stuff like that, your body only takes so much, and you wear down one spot, and it affects everything else.
Oh,
like the middle of my back, like you know what I mean. So every time he drops, I'm like, oh no, he's you're dropping out to the concrete, like when he fought Hardy and all that. Like I'm not saying he's not a good wrestler. He's a fantastic wrestler. That's why they're promoting him. It's what he's doing. He's hurting himself to get a pop, to make people happy. Right?
I see. But again, everything he does fits his character.
It does.
That's
He's
the
a great
thing.
character. Yeah.
So again, it's not about moveset. It's the context of the story they're telling. But Darby's character is a daredevil-ish because he's kind of he reminds me a lot of Jeff Hardy.
Yeah.
Right? He reminds me a lot of Jeff Hardy. Now Jeff Hardy, same kind of charisma, similar kind of sense that they both took these big risks. Like you watched how Jeff Hardy wrestles today, he's not what he was. Like not even close. But
because of the bumps he's taken. Yeah.
All the bumps he's taken.
And the other problems too. But all those other problems you could argue came from all the bumps. Right. Well, pain all the time.
I have a theory about Jeff Hardy, but I can't prove it because I've never met him. But I think some of his other problems are he's much like Darby. This is where Darby has to be careful. Darby is looking for that next high almost as much. That's part of who he is.
Yep.
All right. So the big thing for a guy like that is there are certain highs you shouldn't do. Now you can tell them not to do it, and they're going to be like, no, like, right? They're just going to give you the thing to do it, right?
Young lion mentality. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that's who they are. Jeff, I think pursued certain other things, seeking those highs. If Darby can avoid that, he'll be fine. My favorite wrestler though from AEW, believe it or not, is Orange Cassidy.
Oh, get out of here! I agree with Cornette a lot with him. So you're not going to like that, because I loved Orange Cassidy when I first saw him. I went and binged him, and then I didn't care about him anymore because I already saw everything he did. And it's like Cornette calls it kind of like a sideshow. You're going to be interested in it, but he's going to do the same thing over and over and over. And to me, it got old. It's like he's a one-trick pony almost.
I see, and that's where we're going to have to agree to disagree, because the thing about him, again, there's comedy Orange Cassidy, which is what you're talking about in the indie scene, right? Yeah. Comedy Orange Cassidy is like there's this one match I liked where actually the wrestler actually put Orange to sleep. And I thought that's actually the story of the match. Like he actually, because of Orange is so lazy, it's not that hard to actually put him to sleep.
Sure.
So this was really clever, right? But the problem was this is a comedy match, right? So the wrestler's like, yeah, I got him. When he went to cover him, everything would go wrong, right? It was just one of those like little
bad luck type stuff, like was under the rope
something just would happen, right? For example, like Orange would wake up at the first count. It's like boom, like wait, what? Right? He had to try to convince the referee to like count quietly,
right?
Some very
subtle things.
Yeah. The thing about Orange, this is the thing about Orange Cassidy. Okay, I'm watching his work. He can actually go in the ring. Like he can legitimately
Just
go.
no doubt. Yeah.
So the thing about him is, the thing you gotta understand about him is his character is in some ways. See, I can't wait for him to feud with MJF because I think there's a very interesting story they could tell there, right? Because MJF says he's the smartest wrestler. I would argue Orange might be smarter because again, we want to talk about maximizing the impact, doing as little as possible. I would argue Orange Cassidy is the smartest person in the business, right? And that's right. This is this is so this is why this is why I think he's brilliant because it's not if you look at it in the context of a traditional wrestling match, then I can see where Cornette's coming from.
Exactly. He's old school.
But he's still trying to win. Everything he does, he's trying to win, but he's trying to do it doing as little as possible. And that's right. And
But you're gonna have to give on this one though. But he's doing as little as possible when he does like the slow chop and the fake kicks to the. That's what made me laugh so much when I first saw it. And that's what got old, right? That's not trying to win.
But
That's being silly, right?
But the way it is now, it's almost like an insult to anyone he's doing it to, right?
They're trying to turn it. I've noticed the commentators are trying to sell it that he's that smart. That you know, they're really going with it anti-Cornette way, which I like hearing.
But again, if you look at so my favorite match with him was the first time he wrestled Pac, because that match started as a comedy match. By the end, it was anything but. It was amazing to watch because a lot of people had never seen how good Orange really was in the ring, right? Then they watch that match. So it starts like it's typical comedy stuff. And this is Pac. Pac's just as serious as you get, right? So he's a perfect opponent for Orange, actually. He's the perfect opponent for Orange. Pushes, he's punishing Orange for like a good 5-6 minutes of the match, right? And then he goes for the black arrow he does, which is amazing. Yes. Orange just starts rolling that slow roll away, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. It's so funny.
Right. It makes sense for Orange, right?
Practically, yeah.
Right? Yeah. Then Pac takes his eye off him. And then Orange starts to roll. Like really starts to roll, and she really shows you what he can do. And that 3 to 4 minutes is absolutely crazy because he nearly gets Pac. Like DDTs, jumping DDTs, blind body presses, that Slumdog Millionaire, like everything he's doing fits the character perfectly. Because again, he can go. That's if it was just him doing comedy stuff all the time, I would see where you're coming from. But where I would throw it back, I would throw it against Cornette is the way it has evolved is he goes when he has to. Right, he's been their international champion. You get to watch an Orange Cassidy match every week. Okay, they've been evolving, right?
That's where I would say is where it's at now. Where even Cornette has started giving him a little bit of credit. That's I'm seeing it as well too. He's now trying to wrestle more. It's almost like he's listening to Cornette. Honestly,
well, no, because he has to. He's the champion. That's the thing. Right. He's the champion, right? So he has to wrestle harder. He's trying to keep the belt. Again, he's trying to win. The whole context of the reason why this works, again, let's go back to what I say in wrestling, it's about winning. If what they're doing in the ring doesn't help them win in any way, then you might argue his comedy stuff doesn't. It's like, not exactly. It's part of his shtick. It's part of his psychology.
Oh, he has to be unique. He's a small man.
Yeah,
he has to, just like Darby has to have some kind of gimmick.
Yeah,
solid gimmick. He needs something, or he's just a little tiny guy in a ring, right?
Yeah,
he has to be athletic, but he needs so many people. You need to stick out. His gimmick works. I mean, I went to YouTube after I saw him the first time, and I binge watched him for hours. and I was like, and I'm watching his reign, but I do think they're smart about it too. But I think the reason they're putting him on so much and making him the champ is because they have Big Bang Theory on before, so they have a comedy show on. And then they want to kind of bring that audience as long as they can to give AEW a shot. And let's put on a comedy type act to kind of follow it.
See, for me, I think it's something simpler. He's also been a workhorse for them since the very quote unquote the beginning of the show, right? When he started actually wrestling regularly, he's been there forever. And okay, you can't put the world title. I don't think this is where I agree. I don't think you can put the world title.
The problem. This is where I start to go. I would start to go. Yeah, is he a jobber or is he like
I don't think he's
legitimate
a
heavy champion?
I
think he's at a high level. He's above that, but he's just above it. If you take away his comedy, I think he becomes a jobber. He doesn't stick out at all.
Well, his moveset doesn't stick out, no. but again, he does have the way he carries himself is very him. So maybe he'd find a way. But I think what it comes down to for me is the reason he is in the position he's in is twofold. One, they need a good guy, babyface champion, right? Also, I really want to see this gimmick when he turns heel because I think there's a lot you could do with that as a heel, right?
Orange sour something. I don't know.
But it's also because he's a babyface champion.
Yeah.
He is actually a really good wrestler. Like I think
he is.
He's actually a really good wrestler.
He just is. Yeah, and he's right. Yeah. But yes, but there's the problem is there's so many good wrestlers.
But again,
it's not about the wrestling. It's about what. For instance, what type of promo can he do? Right. So you tell me a knockout promo from Orange Cassidy. The problem is he doesn't talk.
His debate with Chris Jericho.
Oh, I haven't seen that, but that's like 3 or 4. Yeah, I'm going to mention Chris Jericho because that's probably was his biggest moment to shine. And you're right, that was a great moment. But since then, they weren't even using him at one point, and then they did a smart thing. He's you're right. He's ultra talented, and he has a gimmick that works. That's very very funny for a new audience, like what I did. Right, I could see how someone who's new, even someone who's old school wrestling, like I would go to my grandfather's house, so that's how I got into wrestling. Every Saturday, I go to my Sunday. I think it was Sunday. Maybe it was Saturday. It was Saturday because he went to church probably on Sunday. But I'd go over there and Grand Prix Wrestling would be on. You'd go inside the house and he'd be like screaming and yelling, and so family wise, they were right across the street from where I live. So I'd go over and he'd be screaming. Literally at one point they had to tell him, his doctor had to tell him he had to stop watching wrestling because of his heart.
Nice.
You know what I mean? That's how.
Like I said, I look at how do I put this? I look at what a wrestler brings. I can see why they're on TV. Like for example, I think tonight, because where AEW's on right now, I think Swerve Strickland takes the title off Orange.
I was hoping for that.
No, I think it's going to be Swerve because Swerve to me reminds me of Eddie Guerrero. He reminds me a lot of Eddie Guerrero in terms of his mannerisms, especially as a heel. Like his mannerisms.
Oh, Swerve is awesome. I didn't know who he was before he came over but they haven't been using him, so that's why I don't understand. The whole Keith Lee breakup was just a mess story-wise.
The story-wise, it was a mess. But the thing I look at AEW as a fun alternative. I don't think they're ever going to be number one. I don't think they need to be honest with you. Like I don't think they need to be honest with you. I look at them and I see they're a great alternative. I like the fact that the wrestling I see there is very different than what I see in WWE. Yes. I like that. I think I'm glad it exists. My favorite acts on there right now are Swerve, the House of Black. I'm a heavy metal guy, so I'm watching. So I love
House of Black too. And again, that's another thing where Cornette just knocks them to death. I thought. You know what we need to do? I was looking for someone. I said, I need to be on a podcast. I had one with talking wrestling because they're so popular and they make so much money. I need to find someone who could talk wrestling with me.
I can do it. Like it's not hard. It's not hard for me.
Calling it like calling it the mark or something because we're not really part of the industry. But you know what I mean.
But I've interviewed wrestlers before. I definitely can get some ins here and there. But the thing is, I know I'm literally a friend of a friend from Chris Jericho. No joke. Okay. But the thing about it is, what you got to understand is wrestling storytelling. I think authors can learn from pro wrestling. Like the reason I say that is we have to stand out, and wrestling is the art of standing out in a crowd. Right, your product is yourself. If you sit again, I look at comics. I look more like rock bands to comic book teams because I think that there's more of a band element in comics. If you're looking at it from an author's perspective, pro wrestling is where you got to look at things because you're watching these guys and ladies trying to come up with ways to legitimately stand out in a world. So you got a window of time when you can stand out in a world where all these people are there. You have to make it yeah, that's the job. So how do you do that? Right? All right. Like I said, in my opinion, the best wrestler on both shows right now, and not because he says so, but because of the reaction he creates, is MJF.
Interesting.
Because
MJF's good. I would say Sami Zayn is until they just killed him recently.
No. See, Sam. So if you're talking like for an extended period of time,
yeah,
I would say Sammy or Roman, right? But the reason I say it like this, the reason I say it like this is, you gotta. If I'm looking strictly for the emotional reaction, right?
Right. Someone to hate, yeah.
Well, not just hate, just the fact that he's so polarizing, right?
Yep.
He goes out of his way to be the biggest douchebag, but he's so good at what he does, he's getting cheered more and more, right?
Yeah,
he's inevitably going to be a babyface whether he wants to be or not.
Well, they were stuck at that line at one point. He's trying to pull it back with calling himself the devil, and there's so many things he's done that's smart to try and say, "Hey, no, I'm the bad guy," without actually coming out. And
I mean, he knows how to listen. He knows how to be a scumbag. He's really good at that.
He knows how to talk. That's for sure.
Yeah. But the thing is, it's not just his talking; it's what he does in the ring, right? Bell to bell. He understands who he is. Again, ultimately about winning the match. It's all he's about. He's an old school throwback to the old NWA, like not the current, but the old NWA. The reason why Cornette loves him so much is he's a lot like what Ric Flair used to be. He's a lot like Chris Candido. He's a lot like some of those guys that really could work and knew how to be a chicken shit in the process, right?
Yeah. That's what.
Right.
Yep.
Right. He has no problem being the chicken shit on TV. He will run from people. He will do heinous things, but he does it in a way that, again, gets a reaction. I look at like Roman is got a lot of. He reminds me a little bit of Ric Flair too, in the sense that Ric Flair would look beat by everybody. Roman's great at that, right? Yeah. Looks like a champion. But there's a moment in the match where if I was his opponent, I'd be kicking his ass. Right? It's not realistic at all, but he's that good where he makes
sells.
Yeah. So, and then I look at Sammy. Now, Sammy is so nuanced in what he does. It's his nuance. It's not he's a better babyface than a heel. You know, he's been a heel for most of his run in WWE, which I think is hilarious. He's a better babyface than a heel. But the thing is, he's good at it because he thinks about like everything. Again, same context. How am I winning? Right?
How am I getting over? Yeah.
Well, not just getting over, but again, it's all about like the gimmick of pro wrestling is the match itself. I'm trying to win. He's trying to win, or she's trying to win, right? And how do these characters want to win, right? That the audience is going to believe is plausible. Because again, this isn't real life. This isn't a real competition. It doesn't have to be. It's just you're telling a story between two people. Preferably, they either both play. The more liked and hated the characters are, the more the audience is going to respond to what they do. But either way, the goal is they both should be trying to win.
But so look how over Sammy got, to the point that they had to do something with him and kick him out of the bloodline, have that big feud with him. That's because he was so over with everybody.
I think that's a credit to Roman and Sammy because they okay, look at it this way. Roman Reigns, since he's gotten together with Sammy, has only really worked with three people besides Sammy. Kevin Owens, Sammy's best friend, somebody else that he's worked quite a bit with. Cody, briefly, and his own family. If you look at the circle that's dealing with Roman Reigns right now, it's a very small circle. If you want to, when the biggest moneymaker in wrestling wants to work with you in some capacity, even if it's peripherally here, they're not going to be crossing over as much now, but even so, it doesn't matter. They can always go back to that. And the champion doesn't have a problem with this.
Right.
because of the amount of times they have worked together, right? That tells you what not only the guy and the biggest guy in the industry thinks of that guy, but also what the company thinks of that guy too,
Yeah.
right? Right. So I
I
mean,
mean, the
they
word
would not
Uzi.
put they would not put they would not put him in that spot if they thought he wasn't good enough for it.
And he doesn't fit to that spot.
Yes.
If you look at it, he's not Samoan. He's a French Canadian
Yeah,
who's got
but
like a, I don't know his religious background, but apparently he's some kind of religious kind of. He's not Samoan, anyways. He's got ginger hair, pale complex. He is the perfect anti-fit that fit right in with them.
but
Right,
again,
had to work his way in and be their friend.
nuanced storytelling with
That's
everybody. It fit
ultimate story.
and by the way, credit to the Usos, credit to
Yep.
Solo, credit to Payman. They all played their parts well. But again, there's so much nuance and detail, and they didn't build that overnight. They built that for months.
Yeah.
Right? And the story was something everybody understood.
It's
Right?
family. It's family in the end. It's a
Yeah.
dynasty of people in the wrestling industry, a family in the wrestling industry with a dynasty. And when you start throwing, that's why they started throwing that all away in the head of the table. They could throw all this dynasty behind it of the other Samoans. And you know what I mean? It's just, you start throwing that all in there on top of the brothers and cousin relationships and the problems there. And now the third brothers come in, right? And he's kind of aligned with Roman and not with his own brothers right now. You know what I mean? Like there's
Right.
just a dynamic there of family that, you know, people can
Yeah,
relate to sometimes.
and people and that's Roman's best stuff. Like honestly, that's Roman's best
Oh,
stuff.
his acting has gone through the roof. His
Yeah.
subtle things he can do in the ring when he's just his facial expressions, and he knows when to pause a lot. I think Cornette was giving him
I
credit for
love
that.
I love how
His
he
pause is
talks so
brilliant.
much trash. Like he's
Yeah.
so like that's my favorite part
Oh,
about. I love that.
when he was with Cody Rhodes, and Cody Rhodes was opposite, telling how he's going to take his belt, and also, have you ever even challenged for this one? Like he puts one on the ground, he goes, "Have you even fought for this one? Have you even fought?" You know what I mean? It's like
Well, it's not that.
just
No,
ripping him
I'm talking
apart.
like in the match itself. Like my favorite thing
Oh, you
about
can
Roman
just see him
is
talking.
he'll kick your ass, and
Yeah.
then he'll start talking
He'll
shit
talk to
to
you
you.
at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some UFC fighters I get a kick of who do that. But afterwards, you'll hear the guy say, "He was talking to me during the whole fight." Like that's how cocky that person was, right? And think
Oh,
about that.
some. I think the most terrifying one of those I ever saw though was Khabib and Connor. Because Khabib, oh
Oh, he
my
was dominating.
god.
Yeah, that's an example of someone who was just a machine. Yeah.
Well, Khabib. Well, the thing is, Khabib usually fights with a certain degree of like respect, right?
Yep. Yep.
Connor pushed his button so much during the build up to the fight.
Oh yeah.
Khabib just took it all in, all on the inside, kind of waiting, just trying to be the best he could because he's only got like he's like, there's going to be a time and a place for this, and I'm going to wait. So he gets him in the ring. On round 2, he puts him to the down. Let's talk now, and just starts beating the whole.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, oh my god.
Yep.
Like, don't, oh my god. Like, and again, you watch Khabib in any other fight, he's respectful to, I mean, he's hard. He fights hard, but he's very respectful. He's very respectful to his opponent, right? Right? He beats them. I remember his last match with Gagey. Like, okay, he choked him out, but then he helped him up. Like you know, like he wasn't how do I put this? He lets his aggression out, but once it's like in a controlled environment, and then once it's out, again, nothing but he respects the opponent for stepping in. He respects this guy, Connor. Holy shit!
Yeah,
right?
And it's funny because there's a lot of people. Just a general comment on fighting in general. There's a lot of people who will go through their life without being in a fight. I mean, one year I was in 7 fights when I was like 13, and 2 within like 5 minutes of each other. But there's a calmness if you can hit when you're in something like that. Once you're like, okay, I've been hit before. You know, even in boxing, you've been hit so many times.
Oh yeah.
There's a calmness if you can controlled rage is the most brutal thing. I call it controlled rage. What Khabib did, right? He bottled it up and he just let it out on Connor when it was time.
Well, it's the honest truth is like there's nothing you can really do to, like, look, I can get irritated and I can get annoyed at shit, but I've been through enough in life at this point that, and I'll stand up for myself too. I'm not afraid to stand up to anybody at this point in my life. So because it's like, well, I've had all this shit happen to me. What's been done? What else can you do to me? you try to do something. If I really decide, if I wanted to put my foot down, there are awkward moments. I might hold on to some things for a little bit if it's in an awkward moment. But there will come a time where I will just be like, hey, let's have a talk because I don't care. Right.
Yeah.
Right. I don't like there because at this particular point in life, right. It's like, you don't have to like me. I don't care about that, but you got to respect me. And if you're going to cross that boundary, I'm going to let you know about it sooner or later. And when you do, right, that's just the way it is.
And I learned early in life that I got 2 of the times I got in fights within a couple days of each other. The guy was still, I fought him on a Friday and I came back on a Monday and he was still a jerk and he wanted to be my friend all of a sudden. I'm like, what the heck? He was just a total asshole. I won't go into the story of what happened. But anyways, I learned through that someone's still an asshole at the end of the day. You're not going to beat common sense into them. You can make a statement for respect and they'll respect you, but you know what? They're just going to go to somebody else. They'll switch to another person that they're going to be a jerk to.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. No, you gotta accept the fact that you're not going to change anybody. Like that's the one thing. You can't change somebody. Only they can change themselves. That's the reality. Now, you can make them cut closer to that come to Jesus moment. Right. But you don't really have the ability to you don't have the ability to change anybody really. What you can do is you can set a boundary, you can dare them
how
across
they deal with
it.
you.
Yeah, that's it. And you can dare them across it. Right?
Yeah.
So
it's a funny thing, right? I can think of quite a few times, like again, when I was young and being bullied quite often, there was this group of kids that would go around the school and they would just go around picking on people because you didn't have a bunch of friends. So these 5 guys would run around the field, come over, just knock you down and push you around for a couple minutes. And then they'd go on to the next kid. Right. But I'll never forget the day one of them came at me and I sent him flying and he didn't know what happened. Right. So once you took a stand, it was like, he didn't know what happened. Well, he just went flying. He didn't realize how much power I had. And I'm a big guy now, but I had power back then too, and I didn't know it. I didn't know. I was a great wrestler, actually. My dad was a boxer, but I didn't really know him. But I had the genetics for that type of conflict.
So how good were you in amateur?
Oh, I just was. I mean, just in general wrestling. Like I used to wrestle 2 kids at once at school. So I would dare 2 kids at once to wrestle me. And again, it was part of the bully thing and trying to show not to screw with me. I would literally take on 2 kids at once all the time and make them look bad. So it was just easy for me. If I would have got into it professionally, I had one match in high school when we were in gym class. I won 10-2 against the guy. And the only reason he got 2 points was because I let him up at one point. That's the only reason he got, because it's considered he got out of it, but I let him up. No, I've been in lots of situations where I've been in fights where I've been just punched. I remember I got this guy, Ricky Messam. I got one of the fights that year. I got in 7, and then we were friends. He was an okay guy, but he was just mad that day, and he took it out on me. And it was not a mistake, but I mean, it wasn't very nice. He was a jerk. He thought because, again, people picked on me that was okay, I just hit him twice. And he was just sitting there swinging like crazy, and I just kept walking towards him as he was swinging. I got my chin phenomenal. And again, once you're in violent situations, you learn how to deal with it. I just kept walking forward on him. He kept swinging, and I was just kind of like, whatever, that's the best you got. And just picking shots at him. And he was telling me after, those things hurt so much. I'm like, yeah, well.
It depends. Like I used to wrestle. One of my buddies, he's about maybe 280. But at the time, he was like 350, 400 pounds. I was wrestling him on a regular basis. I wouldn't beat him because, like, there's this like understanding because we're friends. There's this understanding too, right? Like when you're wrestling someone that much bigger than you, your only option.
There's weight limits for a reason.
There's weight limits for a reason, right? But the thing is, here's the thing: my only option at that point, if I really want to quote unquote win, is to hurt him, right?
Right, to do something to get us into
right. It's my only real chance, right? So here's the question in my head when we're doing this: is it really worth it to do that? Mm-hmm. No. Well, and someone will go to me, well, why grapple him? You're not going to win because he's twice my size, right? It's kind of interesting to see what you can do against someone twice your size.
Yeah. So my friend, up the hill were bigger than me back in this when I was younger. So my friend was 6'3", and I was 5'11", and I was about a buck 60, buck 70 at the time. He's probably he's probably 180, 190, but we used to wrestle all the time, and I just destroyed him. And so he was really someone who gave me confidence in life, and you know what I mean. And he was awesome. And his other brother was like 6'9", which was crazy, but thin as could be. But he really was so impressed with wrestling me that he used to go around if he saw me someone else, like he had a friend who was in martial arts, and he wanted to wrestle me one day. I'm like, I don't want to wrestle him. This is just, and so the guy wanted to wrestle me. I wrestled me. He was annoying me. So I just threw him on the ground and pinned him. I just took him out in like 3 seconds. He didn't even know what hit him. And I wasn't, you know what I mean? I mean, you want to wrestle here? Because I was just annoyed that day. You're down and done. You know what I mean? And the guy didn't even know what hit him. Like, but my friend always said, you know, he couldn't understand how he was bigger than me, but I could always beat him. I always knew how to beat him. There's technique and there's natural technique, you know, understanding your leverage and getting low. I played rugby as well in high school, and I just dominated people when I.
Because oh man, they probably had to hold you back.
Yeah, I came out of it. My foster mother used to go again because I was used to pain. My foster mother would go, "You have cleat marks on your face." I'm like, "Oh yeah, whatever." I mean, it'll be like whatever, because they walk right. The scrums will go right over you, right? And you got to be a physical person. Like if anyone ever played rugby, they know it.
Rugby,
you know, it's
very
close.
Yeah, it's American football without the pads, essentially.
Exactly, and you know, you're even a scrum when it goes together, when it hits. At one point, my arm was stuck and it was getting pulled away from me. So the scrum is pulling away from me with my arm. I'm like, oh, they're going to disconnect it, and it's legal to forearm. You know what I mean? So if you ever seen a good forearmer, it's brutal.
Oh, absolutely. No, no, rugby is like some of the toughest athletes I think in the world are in this order. MMA fighters, number one. MMA, right? Number two, I put them up there, ballerinas. I don't give a shit what anyone says. Anyone that actually just watches what they do, you will respect those people, or they will. Right? You will respect.
They get injured a lot and just keep going. It's insane when you see some of them get injured and they're just like still keep spinning and shit. That takes fortitude of.
No, yeah, but I mean, they can put their whole weight on like their toes. Like just it is absurd how strong they are. And I anyone that says anything about them, it's like you've never seen them. Dancers are kind of in. So I have rugby at like 3, right?
Oh,
maybe or 3 or 4, right? Yeah. Rugby's 3 or 4 because you could make the argument, I think, for hockey because of just the environment of hockey. So like.
Hockey is nothing. I played hockey too a bit. Quite regularly actually, but I was playing nets most of the time. But when I played out, yeah. But again, I got bigger, so I started out not like I was small and lean back then, but now I'm like 260 and I got huge shoulders, right? Like my shoulders, like when I go to a doorway, right? I got just over the years, you get bigger and you bulk up, and now you know I just think of the fact if I was to try and wrestle someone, I'm older obviously and I'm beat up now, but. You know, I know what to do, right? And they give me 260 pounds, probably 60 pounds heavier than most people, as you said, for weight classes. I know where to throw my weight.
well, it's like this. It's like, how do I put this? I'm 180, like maybe right now 190, but like I'm 180 when I'm in my absolute like prime shape, right? Well, here's the thing, right? You're throwing me around like a rifle. You just are, right? It's not even really about technique. It's not even really about technique at that point.
I don't know what it is. It's weird to say, but and I'm not trying to toot anything and saying it's great or anything. It's just what I am, right? I remember I got transferred out, so I got bullied, and to the point I started fighting kids. So kind of like we're talking about the fights I got that one year, I started fighting everybody, and then I got to the next year and I started fighting again in the wrong way. I started anybody who messed with me, even older people than me. I was willing to fight them, and it was getting me in trouble. So I actually had to leave the high school I was in, and I went to another high school. And I'll never forget, it was called Dwight Ross, and they called it Dwight Ross football, where you just go. You get the soccer ball and you just go. And I just destroyed people. And then afterwards, one day they said, "How did you swing that guy like a baseball bat and knock out Trash?" The guy nickname was Trash. I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. I just did it. I just was going through the guy and I just took him and swung him. I didn't know he was going to hit Trash. Right? I just picked him up and threw him, and he knocked out another guy. I didn't even know what had happened. Right? You know what I mean?
Some people have that. It's just
Yeah,
the way
it's
it
just
is.
power. I actually
Yeah.
did a genetics test. Actually, it was kind of funny, and yeah, it came back. They just put in a new field called athletic power or something like that. So only 10% of genetics people have it, and I have that thing, and it just makes sense to me. Once I was like, oh, it makes sense. Like my dad was a fighter, you know what I mean. I have that genetic. I actually think it came more from the other side of the family where they're German, kind of back to the barbarian almost days, because my grandmother was a big husky lady, right? Very powerful, and so wasn't a lot of the females in my family are very powerful women. So they just got that build, and I think that's what I got in the long run, was that kind of genetic
Well,
foundation.
yeah, it just like some people got it. Like my dad got some. My dad's an athlete. I'm not. Like, I don't have the athletic stuff. I have, I have the stocky build, so I'm probably average, like average, maybe right, probably average, probably is where I'm at. Right, I'm not the biggest or the strongest, but I'm strong enough. Right,
Yeah,
I'm not, but I'm not gonna. I don't have that kinetic, those kinetic
things.
athletes. Athletes just have certain reflexes that just few people
Yeah.
actually do have,
Yeah,
and that's what
Anderson
give.
Silva was a great example of that. I was amazed to find out. I didn't know this until when he throws his punches. Someone explained it. I think it might have been Joe Rogan or something. But they said how some people have some kind of ability in their bones as they punch to transfer the power better, and that's why you can knock somebody out. Like they're accurate. He's accurate as heck, but he also has the ability to transfer his power, the technique almost, or the natural ability even to with those kind of long arms to be able to, we all have our strengths. It's just a
Yeah,
matter of
I will know
unlearning them.
absolutely. Like not everybody's physically a juggernaut. Some people are
No,
mentally like just
and
so
it's not
smart.
always an advantage, right? Because being faster can be a more of an advantage than being a big thug, too, right?
Well,
If you have,
I mean, there are different things. Like for example, okay, might be able to lift the house. Like you gotta let's just be honest. I need a tool. You might not. You may
yeah,
just be able to do it by yourself. But that all said, can you go as long as I can in terms of
exactly,
do you have this? Do you have my stamina? Because I can go a
exactly.
long time.
Because I used to
Right?
have the stamina. I used
Yeah.
to ride my bike 40 minutes up the mountain, 40 minutes down the day, 3 or 4 times a day. You know what I mean? That was just my daily routine back in the day. A great example of someone who's scary as heck, and we all know how scary he is Brock Lesnar.
Oh
That dude
sure.
is fast and big, like, which is crazy how fast he is. Anybody would tell you that. Yeah.
Francis Ngannou scares me more than Lesnar does.
Who is it?
Francis Ngannou actually scares me more than
Oh,
Lesnar does
yeah. That's a
because
very
they actually
looking
measured
dude,
Francis Ngannou's punch,
right?
right? How powerful it was. He hits harder than a Ford
Correct.
12 like 1200 horsepower.
Uh, wow. Yeah. So yeah, it's amazing some of the things that we're all built different, and it's all for different genetic reasons. It's kind of cool once you
Yeah.
start. That's why I enjoyed doing that 23andMe thing. You start to learn. I always thought stupid stuff, right? So I always thought when I went out in the woods, the mosquitoes attacked me more than everybody else is walking around, right? And like I got all these mosquitoes attacking me. I'm like, this is stupid. Why is this happening? What am I doing? I thought, am I wearing deodorant that has some odor or something? And then in my genetics test, it comes up that you're more viable to be attacked because of some reason genetically by mosquitoes. I'm like, oh, well, it's a genetic thing.
Well,
Okay. I would have
everybody's
never thought of that, you know?
everybody's got pros, everybody's got cons, man. That's
Yep.
just the way it
Yep.
is,
Yep.
right? That's just the way it is.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's the whole. But again, ultimately, like going full circle, it's not what we got; it's what we do with it.
Yep. And how we use it to your best advantage, right? I
Yeah.
was the fast 170-pound, strong, very strong, but I became the bigger, huskier dude over my life, right? I offloaded a lot of trucks for a lot of years and worked pipe too. So that helped with some of that.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
we all change genetically and you just got to keep up with what's best and what you got to do with it, right?
So, like my buddy, that 400-pound buddy, he's now a plumber. So he does all the pipe stuff too now, right? Oh, he's ridiculously strong now. I have like when I was doing all the shipping and receiving stuff, right? When I was doing that, I was probably in my best shape. Although not everyone can say the
I was
best shape,
too.
but I was in my
Yeah.
best shape.
Yep.
I could lift all day. I could walk all day. I'm still in, I would say, good shape. I can still walk all day. I still do it like all
Nice.
the time. But I don't. I again, do I have it in me to go 8 hours a day lifting right now? I
Right.
don't know.
Yeah,
Right?
neither do I. I mean, again, injuries happen. Injuries knock us all down, and that's the young lion kind of. I use the young lion acronym. My foster mother also called it invincibility complex. when we're young, we don't realize that our injuries are going to pile up on us. Kind of like with wrestling too. Kind of like what I was saying with Darby Allin.
Mm-hmm.
It's all going to pile up on you, and you're going to pay for it later. So that's what makes your career short, etc. Right? So,
But you have to realize like everything you do is an investment,
mm-hmm.
right? That's pretty much what you got to look at. Everything you do, everything we do, has a price. Now, I lived it for 10 years. One of the reasons why I wanted this, I was bored. That was part of it. Like, mentally, I was just bored with the job. But what it came down to for me more than that, though, was I didn't want to, at 50, 60 years old, all the lifting I've done. I'm sure some of it's going to catch up to me, some of it.
Yeah.
But I don't think I'm ever going to be to the point where I'm going to need shoulder surgery or knee surgery or hip surgery or any of these other surgeries. I'm going to have my days where I'm sore.
Yeah.
And I still have I have those days every now and then now. But it's like, but they're not going to be, it's not going to be like, I can still walk, I can still run, I can go upstairs,
Yeah.
I can still bounce around. Like, I still have it in me to do that. And that, I want to keep that for as long as I can. Because when I go on the road, when I go on the road, like, one of the the last things I'm getting for sure is a gym membership. Partly because it's practical for going on the road. But another part of it too is, to keep myself in shape somewhat, because again,
and it's socially, it'll help you meet other people too. Like, I mean,
yeah.
I'm sure there's a small degree of social. I never was a big gym guy, but I always had my own. I got gym stuff all over the place here. I got punching bags over here, and I've got like the door thing, and I've got a treadmill behind the corner over there, and a Bowflex this over there, and yet I got a lot of equipment in my house.
No
Not
worries.
that I use it, but I've never been a no gym guy. But I understand that it's very, especially for what you're doing, it has a huge advantage. I would think.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Not only that, I can actually go take a shower somewhere.
That's exactly what I was about to say next. Is that just to be able to have a shower afterwards, or have a place where that it's you can go to no matter what. It's a safe place inside too.
I can work out, and then I can eat, and I can
watch a little TV, possibly, right? You know what I mean? If you're on the
I don't watch
treadmill,
TV much anymore. Like, I watch some, but like this is what's happened to me. I create so much stuff all the time now.
Yeah.
So I had to make a choice: video games or television.
Yeah.
I chose video games. I think they're much more.
We're so similar in so many ways. It's funny because but people say, you play so many video games. Like, how much TV do you watch? Right? You know what I mean? And where I'm at in life is I've always been a competitive person. I played StarCraft 20 years ago, and I was really good at StarCraft. And then when it became not World of Warcraft, but Warcraft, I played those and probably played against some of the best in the world at points and not even knowing it. But I played those a lot. I like competition. I consider that like a video game chess when you play those type of games. But I still play Warzone at 50, 51 years old. I'm still playing video games, and a lot of people don't think that us 50-year-olds are out there, but we started all this. We were the guys with the Ataris
we're at the point now. We're at the point now where the games are being more catered to us as much as anything else because of who we are. Like, okay, I mean, just think of it like this, okay? Every kid, because of us, every kid has played Super Mario Brothers at least once because of us. Because those are the games that worked with us. Some of these old games are still in existence because of us, and now the kids and their kids now are starting to play these games as well. Because we're not quite at their kids. That's going to be in the next 5 years, but their kids, these will be the games. That's why Zelda gets made all the time. That's why there's always a new Final Fantasy. That's why there's like Galega. I don't think no, it's not Galega. Gradius still gets made. Like, there are like video game people are some of the most passionate people I know.
Yeah, it's cool to see the retro stuff. Like, a lot of people are retro collect. Like, I still have my Sega Saturn over here with
I have my PS2. I have my PS2. I think it is. Yeah, my PS2. Or I have my PS2 or my PS3. One of the two. I have a bunch. I think it's PS2. I have some old PS1 games. I still have some of my favorite PS2 games. But again, I've broken it down where it's just favorites. I'm not the avid collector of video games or books that I am for comics. Right? You have to make your decisions, right? And that's always where I made mine.
Yep, and even some of the stuff in some of my a lot of my Sega Saturn collection actually, I was very fortunate. When eBay started, I was an early adopter at eBay because I had a job where I was working overnights and we had nothing to do. So I was like, "What's on eBay?" I was buying my video games for $2, or some of these Sega Saturn games for $2 a piece. They're
Yep.
worth so much. They're worth hundreds of dollars. Some of them now.
Yeah.
And same with some of the stuff in the back. I remember like the Millennium Falcon I got like on this side, and a lot of that I got from for $60, a box full of Star Wars stuff for $60. Someone
Yes.
had on eBay at the time when it first came out. So people just wanted to get their yard sale stuff out there, right? Back then, no one knew how much value it would eventually have, or some of this stuff. Yeah.
Yes. But no, I'm like I said, that's the thing. Like for me, it was Street Fighter. It was
Oh, I
Tekken.
love Street Fighter. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Not so much. I don't
Well,
think I
well,
don't think I play that too much.
well. Here's the thing. I got into my hate. So, folks, this is back in my day. Tekken
I
4.
remember when.
Yeah, Tekken 4 and Street Fighter Alpha 3. Tekken 4 when I first played, it was the first time I played a 3D fighter. So the first couple times I got my ass kicked. Then I worked at it, right? I'm very much. It got to a point that no one tried me. No one. I go to play the game. Like, you're good when the people who think they're good avoid you like the plague.
Yeah, I had that problem in Street Fighter. There was a person with Chung Li who knew how to use Chung Li like crazy. I was good with Ryu. I knew all of his tricks, and we were, reasonable Street Fighter, pretty good. But yeah, the Chung Li guy I'll never forget because he was so good. It just makes you look silly. It just he knew how to use the moves and how to counter so well. A good person at something like that will destroy someone who's even reasonably good, right? There's levels to it, just like anything.
So I ended up sparring with the Caribbean champion in college. He was found himself in Windsor to go to the university for his program. So I go to where I play Alpha 3, and I meet this guy. He's like, "Oh, you want to go? Yeah, let's go." So we have a fight. He goes, "Vega?" Because that was my guy.
Oh, you're Vega. Oh, yeah, okay.
So that was my guy. Well, he's one of my guys. I can use. I was great with Vega. I'm great with Cammy. Cammy's my favorite, but I'm good with Ken as well. I'm very good with Ken.
When I wanted to throw people off, I used Honda. I would mess people up with him.
Honda.
But he's tricky. He's got weaknesses for sure.
He's not maneuverable enough for the really usually. Anyway, anyway, long story short, I beat him the first round.
Nice, yeah.
I beat him the first round. He smiled because he doesn't usually. This guy doesn't usually. I didn't know who he was. He doesn't usually lose. So he goes, "All right, tell you what. Let's do another match." Okay, he picks for you. I see this guy unleashes and kicks my ass. But it's fun. Like it's not like I don't shot because again, much like him, I'm not used to playing somebody as good as me very often. So it's like it's good to play somebody, right, that can do that. Yeah, he was. In all fairness, I have not said this before. He was slightly out of practice. He wasn't in his absolute apex best. Still good, but not his apex best. Right, he was holding back when we did the first fight, just because
he could mess around. Yeah,
right. This time he wasn't messing around, so I switched to Ken. The matches we would have, man, like it was like I remember them, and I'm like, it's so rare to face someone that good. Like I cannot even put into words how rare that is, and you're against someone really good. You're not going against someone that's cheesing you out. He's very, he knows exactly what he's doing, and you know it. And everything you do, everything he does to you, right? You like there's almost like you just know. And this is like me at my absolute best, right? But I mean, once you want it, but that's so rare. Most of the time, here's what happens. I got to a point where no one could touch me. And when no one could touch me, I would just play the machine because, honest to God, right? I had one guy. I shit you not. He spent like $100 to try to beat me. I shit you not. He couldn't do it. I got him like 100. Legitimate. I wanted him to. At the end, I really wanted him to beat me just so I would stop. But just when you're on, you're on.
Yeah.
Those are the when you're like you're good. I'm not that good anymore. Like now I'd go play. I get worked. I would get worked
Yeah.
again.
I I went back to it. So they gave it away for free on the Xbox. Not the was it the 360? Yeah, it was the Xbox 360. They gave it for free, and I went back and I played it. Oh, people got so mad. I used Sega all the time, and people were getting so mad at me. Holy crap! I couldn't believe how mad these people were getting
Yes,
and
I guess
yelling
really
at me.
good. He's top tier.
Yeah,
He's top
yeah,
tier now.
and I know enough to know how to use. I've lost against him so many times in the past, and I'm reasonable with them. But it was fun because I got some authentication that hey, that if I can make somebody mad, then I've done something. I'm a competitive person in a good way. I'm okay to lose. I think we all learn from losing, and we'll hear that story our life. But it's true. I've always been. I'll hit my head against the brick wall and try and get better. Right,
It,
find a way around it.
I like. Oh, so here's where I am. I'm not quite as competitive as I once was in games. Not quite. Even like Magic once upon a time was uber competitive. Like Street Fighter, uber competitive. I was very competitive. Now, as long as I get to do kind of what I want to do, I don't really care if I get the W or I don't.
I'm the type of person that if I get my pound of flesh, I'm all right.
Yeah, it's it. That's pretty much it, right?
And if I can get in a pound of flesh, I'll win. I'm trying to win. But if I find that there's even when I play Warzone now, if I get a couple kills in and I all the time I'm playing the new rank system on that, and I'm playing with randos while I'm playing against people on teams who are well-oiled machine teams. And as long as I get a pound of flesh in, I'm okay. Like that's the only reason I keep playing it. I should stop playing ranked because I'm still going up, but I probably should stop because
So,
I don't have a crew, right?
so the game I played before we started this conversation is called Shadowverse. I'm good at the game. Like if I want, like I'm like, so I'm a grandmaster in one mode, and I'm trying to get to grandmaster in the other mode, and I'm halfway, like at the last rank. I'm halfway through the last rank. So I'm approaching the halfway point. I'm I finally took it seriously. This format, this particular version of the format, and I have a really good deck, and I'm smashing people regularly with it.
Right.
So I'm moving slowly up the ranks, and every once in a while I change up to another, just a janky meme deck that's just good enough to win every once in a while. But all of which to say that I came to a point with the game, like I'm really good. I'm still really good than I want to be, right? What I've learned now is where do I put that competitive energy now? I don't necessarily put it into the games I play, but in the art and work I do.
Mm-hmm.
That is where I play to win.
Yep. Yeah, if you're a competitive person, you can bring those skills. I've done my entire life. When I started at Corel, again, it goes back to how I was born up. Again, when you're younger and you're getting bullied, you want respect. And the way I got respect was through playing sports against them and people realizing I was an athlete. As soon as they realized I was an athlete, it started to open people's doors, right? At first, I was always good. A great little story. I went to this other high school, so I had to move because I couldn't go back to West Kings, and they had a bunch of jerk guys on one team who were beating up everybody. They put all who they considered losers on one team, and they were just mowing them down on the field. And they were big guys. And I came in, I was new from West Kings, which is the rival school to them. So they put me on the jerk team, and they just did this run where they smashed through everybody and went and scored a goal. They picked up the soccer ball, kind of like the Dwight rules, and they just ran with it, right? And they would just, the other guys would be kicking it and trying to play soccer, right? But these guys are like, no, we're just doing whatever the hell we want. We're the badasses of the school, right? Let's just go smash some geeks type mentality. When I got the ball, I picked it up and I ran through everybody. I ran to the other side and just put it down. I smashed everybody. And it made a good statement at that school. It didn't stop them from being jerks. Some of the times I'd find pins on my chair, you know what I mean? Just because that's from the other school. It's amazing how people can be jerks, right? They would literally put pins. And what I would do is I wouldn't react to it. I'd get a pin in my ass sitting down and I wouldn't react. I would just kind of go, just pull it up, put it to the side, right? You know what I mean?
Well, you gotta make a decision with battles you gotta fight too, right?
Yep.
And that's kind of
you can't win some battles. Like you gotta be smart about it. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, they're. I mean, the fact that they have to do that to you means they couldn't really get at you directly, and that probably bothered them more than
I knew not to give them the benefit of that. When you give them the benefit of the fact that you react to it, that's what they want. They want to be able to laugh at you and go, "Ah, look what I made him do," right? But when I do nothing and I just pull the pin and go like this, it's not the reaction they want, right? You know what I mean? So it's just funny the way people were back then and teenage, and probably a lot of people might still be experiencing that. You still hear bullying is rampant, but it's amazing
Human
how we
nature.
judge each other.
Well,
It
well,
is
well
pack mentality. Yeah.
human nature doesn't change.
No, good point. Yeah.
Human nature doesn't change. Like it doesn't. You got it. It's what it's about is, again, who do you want to be? Like that's it. Like pandemic taught me, like I'm not gonna like I said, taught me this. Introduce a little fear, you figure out exactly who people really are.
Yep.
Right.
You find out when the going gets tough who people are too.
Yeah, exactly. No, but that's the thing is that was
fair weather
that was
friends.
it.
I got no value for fair weather friends, zero.
Yeah.
Because I've been in enough tough spots in life. That's why I'm still friends with the friends from way back. Fair weather friends, it's fantastic. It's nice to meet you, but you know what I mean. In the end, right? There's no value for a fair weather friend. I got your back is the way I am, right? I expect you to have mine in a sense.
Yeah. Well, it's more than that. It's also just like what I care. This is what I look at with people. This is it. Do they stand for what they say they stand for?
Yep.
Do they do what they say they're going to do? Will they show up when it counts?
Yep.
If the answer is no, then that's everything I need to know.
Yep. Exactly. You said that great because that's exactly the way I look at it too. You know what I mean? Or, I don't. If you're just kind of using somebody for some reason, or you're just, when the going gets tough, or something is a good friend is going to back you.
Yeah.
They're going to help you. It's not going to be about wow, I took him out to lunch and paid for lunch, right? You know what I mean? Unless you're in a financial situation, that's a total different story, right?
Well,
but they're not going to argue about little things.
But no. Even financial situations. Okay. I find that the most giving people are the people that have the least, not the most, the least. They are the more giving people, by and large, right? There are exceptions to this, but by and large, that is the way it works. So what I've learned in this life is this: I'm going to measure you by what I see you do, and that is it. I'm not going to judge you because, again, I don't know the intentions. I don't know
the story,
the headspace, the shoes, the road you travel to get to where you're at now.
Yep.
What I'm going to look at is what you do. That's it. That is it. And everything else, right, to me, is irrelevant.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Like I said, I've said this many times. My pandemic moment was right at the beginning. Right? It was, I think I told this last time to you, but if I didn't, this is the thing. I was in Vancouver. This is right, like we didn't know anything at the time. The world was shutting down. And what was going on was, I was coming home from work. This is Vancouver's trains, and every night was an adventure, especially during like the weeks everything was shut down because you did not know what you were going to fucking get going home, right? And I can only and some of the people like I met that are making the decisions they were making, I felt for people because there was no way to win, so you had to do the best you can. So there was this gentleman I was on my way to work. He was on his way to work. I was on my way home from work. He was on his way to work, and he goes to me. Hey, you got a pen to? I want to draw and stuff going to work. It's like, no, I can't. I don't. I didn't have anything. So he's like, oh, no worries, buddy. And he holds out his fist like this, right? He just holds it out, right? Now this is right at the beginning, and I realized right then and there how cruel this time was going to be, because I realized I hesitated right there for just a second. Right. I hesitated.
You hesitated to be, yeah.
Right.
It's a different time. Yeah.
Well, it's a different time. But then I thought, is it really that different? Like, honestly, because at the end of the day, it's about how you treat people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I guess it's kind of an interesting pandemic story, but I never really, I was downtown walking and there was this older guy, well into his 70s, amazing shape. So jealous of him. Walking all over the place. He's going to have to walk an additional 20 minutes to get somewhere, so he's not going in the right direction. I'm trying to help him find it. But then I realized after, what if I worried it because I just was just in a public place that was going to make him sick by talking to him. So it's funny how, I worry about my own safety, but I was then worried about this guy's safety all of a sudden, right? I'm like, this is an older guy. He's, you know what I mean? But anyways, it's funny how the pandemic changes our mentality. And you quickly find out, how people are going to deal with things. When people are stockpiling toilet paper, you got to look back on that and just laugh. You have to go, seriously, this was the biggest thing you were worried about.
It was so bizarre. That was the most bizarre part of it, actually, to me, was that. But no, I will be kind to you, because I don't know. My whole approach on the safety of others thing was this: if I had to go outside, I was taking a risk, and so was the person with me. That was my mentality, right? We were both taking risk. We both know what we're walking into doing it, right? Right. That was my perspective.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I decided that, that was the base level, was I was going to be humane to the people I'm dealing with in that time, because that was, in my opinion, a by and large better way of doing it. Because again, it partly was to remove the stress of, well, what if this, eliminate that worry out of my system. But also just like, no, man, like we're all taking, like every day we go outside's a risk anyway.
Yeah.
Right. So I have to treat this like everybody here is understanding this.
I think the problem there is that everybody wasn't reacting the same, right? For instance, you could go to I remember going to Walmart, and I was walking down the aisle, and they have all these rules for how you walk down the aisles. Typical Doran. I follow the rules, right? Unless I see a situation where they don't make real sense to me, and sometimes I won't follow them. But I am following the rules because it's a pandemic. I don't, want to get kicked out of the store or something. But these younger people come up and they just kind of reach in front of me and start grabbing chips, right? Like, and it's like, what the heck? Like, you know what I mean? We're supposed to keep 6 feet apart. Like, I don't care you're going the wrong way in the wrong aisle, but it was like, is this the way it is, right? Some people are going to respect it, some people aren't. I didn't really care in the end.
That's saying, like, at the end of the day, no one really did. Like that's the thing. I looked at it very, very simply. If I'm going outside, because I can't control anybody else, like that's just what it comes down to for me. I have no control.
Yeah.
So I'm taking a risk going outside. They are taking a risk going outside. And that is all there is to it. Now, from that point on, right? And then again, some people might listen to me and go, well, that seems crazy. It's like, well, what else can I do? I can't control much here. I just can't. Right. So, right.
Yeah.
Right.
You're totally right. Yeah, I agree 100%. And my spouse was very kind of follow the rules, stay isolated, stay very and I'm very much of the mindset of, if life's going to take me out, it's going to take me out. It's already tried enough times already.
Yeah, that's it.
That I'm at the point that I'm like, okay, is this what's going to get me? I don't know. Is cancer going to get me? Is this going to get me? I don't know. Right? You know what I mean?
Well, I also had this thought pretty early on in the pandemic too, and this was this: Africa has this rampant pandemics all the time, or epidemics at least. Japan epidemics, China epidemics. This was our first time experiencing it, but there was a lot less panic outside of North America than here. Some of that was, I would say, a little more media driven here than it should have been. But I also get it was everybody's first time. But I just had this real thought, life has gone on everywhere else this has happened. It will go on here too. And that was, again, people may disagree. Listening to me may heavily disagree with this, but that, again, I just kept it really simple. I wasn't going to be afraid. I was going to accept that there were things I couldn't control. And in the grand scheme of things, whether people agree or not, the world hadn't changed. This is part of what happens in the world. It's just part of life.
It's part of it. I believe in natural selection very much. It's happened throughout the world so many times, and it's, you know what I mean, like we've evolved, and sometimes it takes pain to evolve, but yeah, I'm not, if it, a great example is Brock Lesnar, right? What was it, he had like Lyme disease or something, I can't remember what tried to took him out, some kind of intestinal
diverticulitis, I think what it was.
So here's the biggest, meanest, baddest dude you could think of in a lot of ways in the world at that time. He was, a UFC champion, WWE, just amazing wrestler, and all these different, won all these titles, and a friggin' thing took him out, like a bacteria in his intestine. We just don't know. You don't know in life. You can gamble it whichever way you want, but everything technically is a gamble. You could go get hit by a car tomorrow.
Yeah,
right.
that's
What I
life.
mean? We don't know. Just enjoy it and have fun, and to the best of your ability. And don't get too stuck up in some of these things. You got to be safe, but don't some people
Well,
can really freak out.
So how to put this? Don't necessarily tempt fate, unless that's your personality.
It's my personality.
Don't necessarily
I'll
tempt.
Yeah, I will make not all the time, but in a yeah. So you're right. You shouldn't, but I have been through so many spots where I guess in sports too, like where you have to take the risk and the reward, right? Where you weigh it, kind of, you know what I mean?
Well, no, that life is filled with risk. It always has been. It always will be, and part of what makes things worth doing in life is the risk. That has always been the case. So I say this to anybody watching, listening, whether you agree with my point of view or not, doesn't really matter to me. Here's the point. You have to wake up every day and walk in your own shoes. You have to make a decision of what that's going to look like each and every day. Are you going to carry yourself with dignity, or are you going to actually carry yourself with the dignity of, I am going to do what I want to do, and I will pay whatever price that will come from it, and I will do it with a smile, because that is the best way to live.
You got to enjoy it, and when the naysayers hate it when you're smiling, when
it's even it's part of the fun. It's just part of the fun.
Yeah.
Doran, buddy, listen. Next time we do this, we got to meet in person at some point, bud.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess you're going on your big road trip, but I'm assuming you're going down south first. It sounds like you're going to.
I'll be back and forth. Don't worry about that.
I'd love to see how it's working out for you and figure it out.
I again, folks listening to me, going out on a limb. That has been the best compliment I ever got is from an author I'm interviewing for the Patreon version of the show next week. He goes, "I've never seen anybody so willing to go into the unknown as much as you." I like that a lot. I really, really do. It's just, it's part of who I am. I will be. I will always look for what is, for me, most worthwhile doing.
Yep.
Right. And the same with you, man. Look, I can't promise. Just keep making the comics you want to make. Keep doing the things you want to do. At this point, man, life's just too short.
Yeah, no, I personally myself, I'm in I consider myself a very blessed place. But when you've been through a lot in life, you always worry about the downfall, right? You know what I mean?
There's always a little bit of that.
And of course, your health as you get older. You don't realize this when you're young. If anything, I can say to any listener, if you're young, enjoy it. You don't understand how important health is to you. Enjoy your life, and it doesn't mean health is bad, but you know what I mean. It's all, life is fragile sometimes, so you need to enjoy the moment.
I think life is fragile. I think that's the real thing. Life, even at the best of times, is fragile. You don't realize it as much when you're younger because you get to there's that time to live.
Yep.
But this is what I would go so far to say, because I am getting into my middle-aged and crazy years, and that is this. This is why I want to do this now. I want to do this while I'm still physically and mentally able to handle anything that comes my way. Because I can definitely do this when I'm older, but it's going to be harder when I'm older, right? Right? It's a lot harder if you're older than I am. Right? You're a little older than I am.
I can't remember what you said. You're in your 40s, did you say?
Yeah, 41.
40, yeah, so I'm 50. So I'm a decade above.
Yeah, so you're a decade ahead of me, and you could still theoretically do this road trip if you wanted
I could
to.
probably.
Yeah, probably. But there is a little bit more. Yeah, well, yeah, you would have to do it slower. You'd have to do it slower. We couldn't do it as quickly as I could, and you'd have to take it with the account that there's a greater chance. I'm not saying It could happen to me. I'm not saying I'm invincible or any of that bullshit, but there's a greater chance if something bad really did happen to you on the world, you'd have to shut her down, right? I mean, that's a risk I'm taking too. I mean, I'm being very honest about it, but it's again, what do you want? What I want at this point in my life is connection and adventure, and that is what I'm going to go for. And that's
get it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. and then I'll write about it and tell people about all the crazy shit I've done. Right? Because that's a million mistakes, no regrets. That is how I want to live. I have a handful of regrets. I want to see if I can keep it under 2 hands in my life.
You try.
I'm trying. You know what? Because I don't look at a mistake and regret quite the same. Mistakes? Oh no! I can't count how much stupid shit I've done in this life.
I've done stupid shit
too. Yeah, right. But regrets, genuine 100% regrets? Nah, not many. Because I learned a long time ago that hurts a lot worse than anything else.
Yeah, and you got to let things go. You can't let the one thing I've definitely learned is a lot of people say, how come you're a positive person still? How come you're smiling? How come, with everything you've been through, when they sit and analyze, it's because you got to let it go. You can't, you can't just stew on everything that goes wrong in life. If you do, you just bottle it up and you just become a bitter, kind of angry, or we mentally break down. Like you saw a lot of that during the pandemic.
Well, no, it's just like it's not positivity. I find is misunderstood. I think it is misunderstood. Positivity isn't necessarily an unacknowledgement that life can be hard. Quite the opposite, right? It's the fact that you're still here, right? What better way to rebel against the difficulties of life than to approach them with a smile?
Prove your worth, right? Show it's wrong. Every time he tries to knock you down, you got to get back up, as they say.
Absolutely. We should plug something of yours before we wrap up somehow.
I'm not really. I'm working on stuff. Yes, I'm working on Raquel too. I mean, you can go to whitefirecomics.com and check it out. You can digitally download Raquel there, but I'm not really right now. I just, because I was cool talking to you last time, I thought it'd be fun to come talk to you.
I know. No.
Canadian
I know.
in a lot of ways.
Whitefirecomics.com, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, so. I know. I get that. No, Doran, I totally get that. Sometimes it's just fun to chat, but we should at least tell people where to find you, because that's the right. I mean, I'm
on Facebook. I'm around. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, go to Twitter at whitefirecomics.com. Yeah.
So folks, go check out whitefirecomics.com. Doran is an amazingly talented dude. Again, so listen. When I do meet you in person, so I'm half tempted. So we can do this one of 2 ways, right? This is how I think we should do this. We should pick a game that we're both either really, really good at or really, really bad at.
So that's the competition.
Okay. I
play chess too, but I'm not like super good at chess, but I have my own style, that's for sure.
Well, which one?
Oh, I'm just saying in chess as well. You mentioned you play chess. I also play chess. I learned at a very young age to play chess. Actually, one of my bucket list things was to play, I guess, a Russian. At Stanley, I was lucky enough there was a bunch of Russians there, and one of them played chess. I'm like, yes! So I went and messed him up the first game most of the way through. He did not know what was going on because I never play against anybody real, but as a kid, I developed my own style, right? My own weird strategy, and he had no clue that I was willing to just exchange like crazy with him. But anyways, he beat me to death, and I was like, afterwards, and I'm like, because I only have really one strategy, I think. But anyways, it was so much fun to put that off the bucket list. But anyway, yeah, I'm sure we can find. We got to do Street Fighter. We got to try Street Fighter.
No, we have to do Street Fighter. We have to do Street Fighter. How about this? In person. We'll do We'll do like a highlight reel of our Street Fighter matches. Right, and whoever loses, the other guy like hold and lets the other guy cry. And then we'll actually do a real. Maybe we'll do something real chess, like a real game of chess in person, like film that. Watch us play.
Yeah. I'll probably be terrible. I'll probably get beaten.
Hey, listen. This is how it goes. And if one of us is really, really good at something, like both, and then the other one really, really sucks, to make the other guy feel better, we'll find something the other guy's just like for example, I suck at first person.
Oh, you're not good at first-person shooters?
Oh,
Really?
no, I'm terrible at them. I'm
Oh yeah,
terrible.
no, I'm sneaky, sleazy bastard. That stuff. I'm so sneaky and strategic at that stuff. Again, from the chess side of things, sometimes I try to apply. But yeah, no, we got to find something. And just so you know, I have a friend that I play. Part of our thing is we play every time we see him. We play the hockey on the Xbox. We have a little miniature Stanley Cup. We put our stickers on every time someone
That is
wins. We
amazing.
need to get something small like that. So the first time, if we do meet and it works out, we'll get some kind of little reward. We'll sticker whoever wins the first round. Whoever you can walk off with it into the distance, and when we meet again, we can do it again. And then the next person, whoever wins, gets to put their sticker on it. And
Oh,
you know what I mean?
I have a wonderful idea for this, and it's actually a really, really hilarious thing. Because you actually kind of have made it, because you got the laser thing, right? So
Yeah.
we make like a
I
little,
didn't believe it. Yeah.
yeah, we designed like a very special an over the top prize with like room for stickers.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Put some kind of like really, really trashy logo. Like it should, I don't know if it should look good, but like should be like maybe like
Okay. Yes. Right. This is the worst prize that no one's gonna steal from you.
yeah, exactly.
You're like, what do you want that for?
So we make it look actually.
Nasty.
So one of my favorite wrestlers from the like Attitude Era was Christian. You remember the obnoxious shades he used to wear?
Yes. Yeah.
That's what we should be competing for: obnoxious shades.
Okay, something that you can wear as well to remember. Just on the road, you can put them on and
exactly.
Yeah.
I was like, Doran, see?
Yeah. No one else will get it. I took the cup that we played against to Mexico with me, and I was running around Mexico taking pictures of it. No one had a clue what I was doing, but I was mailing them back to my friend, right? Going, hey, me and the cup are in Mexico, right? Look, we're by the ruins. Look at the view out the window.
That's amazing.
You know what I mean?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's good. Doran, I gotta say, thanks for coming back on my show. Thanks for everything.
Hey, yeah, no, it's whenever you need me to sit here and talk a bunch of stuff, I'm always ready to talk.
All right. So let's do this. Let's wrap this up in style, folks. I have a Patreon page. If you want to see where the podcast is going to go in the future, you can literally do it right now. $5 a month gets you access to the new episodes that are going to be airing post 1000, episode 1000 right now. And for a single dollar, if you don't want that, for a single dollar, I have my latest novel release, Corey the Night Witch. I am doing those in the raw on Patreon right now. You can $1 a month, you get 2 chapters a month. So I promise you, until the book is complete. And if you are there for any extended period of time, I promise I'll send you something cool, or possibly even come in person, depending on where you are in the world.
Nice.
And that will do it for this episode of Just Joshing, ladies and gentlemen. Casey Wardell joins the podcast on Friday. So for everybody watching, everybody listening, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Stay inspired. Keep shining in the dark. And I'll see you next time.